Chapter 2000. Yi Qinghan was filled with anger as he rushed out of the cave. His furious rebuke was like a thunderclap exploding beside their ears. It was full of vigor. The group of people from Fire Cloud Ridge jumped in fright and hurriedly turned to look at Yi Qinghan. Only then did they realize that it was a Middle Realm youth. They were instantly enraged. "Kid, do you want to die? Do you know who we are?" The fattest middle-aged man roared angrily. "I don't care who you are. Motherfucker, how dare you bully me? Are you blind? You don't even recognize the sacred ground's holy son, Jian Shisan, standing in front of you. What kind of big shots can you be?" Yi Qinghan scolded coldly. Jian Shisan hurriedly pulled back Yi Qinghan, who was about to explode. He smiled wryly and said, "Forget it. It's a big day for the eternal Sword Dao sacred ground. The whole world is celebrating. Brother, give me some face and let me tell them." Jian Shisan wanted to endure, but the group of people from Fire Cloud Ridge didn't. They surrounded Yi Qinghan and glared at Yi Qinghan with ferocious expressions. They rubbed their fists and were about to attack. "Everyone, please calm down. I am indeed the holy son of the Sword Dao sacred ground, Jian Shisan. My residence alone has been given to the older generation experts of the battle tribe. In fact, many of the residences of the young experts of the Sword Dao sacred ground have been occupied. There are so many esteemed guests from the sacred ground. We can't let them stay outside with us, right? I personally came out to stay in the cave because I hope that no one will complain. Otherwise, people will say that the Sword Dao sacred ground doesn't treat guests well." Jian Shisan explained earnestly. "Go away. I don't care if you are Jian Shisan or not. This bastard dares to look down on my Fire Cloud Ridge. He deserves to die. However, it's a big day for the Sword Dao sacred ground. I won't kill him, but he won't be forgiven." The fatty pushed Jian Shisan aside and immediately grabbed at Yi Qinghan. Slap! Yi Qinghan reached out and grabbed the fatty's outstretched hand. With a vicious twist, he broke the fatty's hand bones. He exerted force with his body and crushed the fatty, causing him to kneel in front of him. "What is Fire Cloud Ridge? I've never heard of a few upper-level cultivators daring to cause trouble here. Are you looking down on the holy land of the Sword Dao? Are you looking down on me?" The corners of Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. His expression was cold and cruel as he suppressed the fatty's upper-level physical body beneath his feet. "You've got guts. Let go of my junior brother, or I'll start a massacre today." Two old men walked out from the group of people from Fire Cloud Ridge. They were both in the upper realm. Their cultivation levels were not bad, but they were not as good as the blood-robed guards. Whoosh! Boom! Bang! Yi Qinghan turned into a bolt of lightning as his corporeal body exploded to the extreme. At such a close distance, not many people could compare to his corporeal body. No one saw him punch out, but the two upper realm martial artists were hit in the chest. Their backs bulged, and their corporeal bodies turned into a bloody pulp. Only their souls escaped. "Start a massacre. Why don't you take a look at your own fist?" Yi Qinghan waved his hand and patted the dust off his body. He ridiculed them in disdain before turning around and returning to his cave. The group of people from Fire Cloud Ridge turned pale with fright. When Yi Qinghan made his move, the three upper realm martial artists' corporeal bodies were suppressed. Only their souls were barely hanging on. The other middle realm martial artists were no match for him. "You guys better leave quickly. My little brother's temper isn't very good. If you anger him, you probably won't be able to leave this valley tonight." Jian Shisan smiled bitterly. "Who are you? Do you know who's behind me? You destroyed our corporeal bodies. I'll definitely make you suffer." The soul of the upper realm martial artist roared unwillingly. At this moment, Zhang Jingtian walked out with a spear in his hand. He sat on a rock and asked curiously, "Who's the boss behind you? Tell me, you might scare me." Whoosh! Yan Ao and Gu Qingyu also walked out. They sat on a rock as if nothing had happened and looked at the group of people from Fire Cloud Ridge with ridicule. "My master is the crown prince of the Holy Empire." The soul of the upper realm martial artist suddenly rose. It was as if Xia Jiulong's name could provide him with powerful energy. Pa pa pa. Jiang Jingtian pretended to be afraid and patted his chest. He teased, "What a big name. It really scared me to death. So you guys are the crown prince's people. Do you want my boss to apologize to you guys? Do you think an apology is enough? Make him come out on his knees." A middle realm martial artist from Fire Cloud Ridge saw that Jiang Jingtian was scared and immediately stood up. Jian Shisan was about to go crazy. He patted his head with his big hand and secretly shouted, "What I'm afraid of really comes. Kuang sect and Xia Jiulong are at loggerheads. They're actually afraid of Xia Jiulong's name. Aren't they courting death?" Ha 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 ha, Gu Qingyu, Yan Ao and Jiang Jingtian laughed. Their laughter stunned everyone. They thought that Gu Qingyu and the rest were scared silly. But after taking a closer look, they realized that they were ridiculing them with disdain. "You guys should go and inform Xia Jiulong to take revenge for you guys. We brothers feel that it's beneath us to take action against trash like you guys," Jiang Jingtian said indifferently. After arguing for half an hour, the people from Fire Cloud Ridge knew that they couldn't take advantage of them. They could only grit their teeth and leave angrily. Only then did the little girl and her elder brother realize that Yi Qinghan's group's origins might really be as they said. They weren't simple. Their expressions changed. They laughed awkwardly and walked over to strike up a conversation. "Are you really the holy son of a Sword Dao Holy Land?" The little girl stared at Jian Shisan with her round eyes. The light in her eyes was as dazzling as the stars. It was endless anticipation. Jian Shisan smiled bitterly. "Have you ever seen anyone who dares to pretend to be the holy son of a holy land at the entrance of a holy land?" The little girl and her elder brother were speechless. In a certain courtyard of the Sword Dao Holy Land, Xia Jiulong was wearing a dragon robe. He was incomparably majestic. Xian Xiu stood at the side respectfully. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. "Xian Xiu, oh Xian Xiu. This emperor thinks highly of you, but you've disappointed this emperor time and time again." Xia Jiulong sat in the courtyard pavilion and drank hot tea. "This subordinate deserves to die. Your Highness, please punish me." Xian Xiu knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice. "If I punish you, I won't have anyone by my side. I'll spare you for now. Have you investigated the matter I asked you to investigate?" Xia Jiulong asked coldly. "I've investigated it." Yi Qinghan brought 3 young experts from the eccentric sect for an audience. Lin Wutian isn't with them. He and the holy son of the Sword Dao Holy Land, Jian Shisan, live in a valley 15 kilometers outside the city. Fan Yin doesn't live with them, Xian Xiu hurriedly replied. Xia Jiulong's face was gloomy. He didn't want to wait any longer. He didn't want Yi Qinghan to live another day. Whoosh! Xia Jiulong pulled out a short sword and stabbed it into the stone table. He said coldly, "I'll personally take action tomorrow night. It's your honor to be assassinated by me personally." Xian Xiu asked in shock, "You'll personally assassinate him? This isn't very good, right?" "Why? If I didn't take action, would you have been able to do it?" Xia Jiulong asked coldly. Xian Xiu's breathing froze. He was actually speechless. However, Xia Jiulong's reputation would be damaged if he failed to assassinate a young legendary expert during the ceremony. Therefore, he risked being scolded and reminded him, "Your Highness, you forgot about someone. Actually, you don't have to take action personally. Chapter 2001. Xian Xiu bowed as he reminded Xia Jiulong. Xia Jiulong's eyes flashed. Xia Jiulong didn't want Yi Qinghan to live for even a day. Perhaps it was because he was wary of him from the bottom of his heart. He felt that Yi Qinghan was a danger that could threaten his future fate and opportunities. Xia Jiulong narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself, "The Dark Walker hasn't appeared for many years. I might not be able to find him. Tomorrow night, I'll make the first move. If there's no other way, I'll find him. Yi Qinghan can't stay for long. He'll be a disaster sooner or later." "First, I congratulate your highness on your success," said Xian Xiu with a bow. Xia Jiulong slowly pulled the dagger out of the stone table. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he muttered, "Without Fanin's protection, you're just a piece of trash. For me to personally take action, your death can be considered honorable." The originally peaceful atmosphere stirred up the undercurrents. However, the hidden killing intent was dispersed by the joyous atmosphere, making it even more difficult to figure out. That night, Yi Qinghan closed his eyes and rested until dawn. Only then did he play the flute again. He controlled the melodious sound of the flute, sometimes murderous, sometimes pleasant. At this moment, the people in the valley no longer thought that Yi Qinghan was trampling on their ears. Instead, it was the sound of the flute that contained profound laws. Sunlight shone on the surface of the lake, making it sparkle. The fish were very intelligent. They rushed out of the water with the sound of the flute and slid down in a perfect arc. Yi Qinghan walked out of the cave and tried to use the sound of the flute to control all things, including any intelligent matter. The ancient trees swayed in the wind, their withered branches trembling. Their ancient roots were almost uprooted from the ground. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound of the flute was loud. The large fish at the bottom of the lake soared into the sky, wanting to compete with the sky. The sound of the flute was filled with killing intent. When it reached the bottom of the lake, the fish in the water actually started killing each other. The more they killed, the fiercer they became. The murderous intent in the sound of the flute was like a whispering cold wind that made one's hair stand on end. The surface of the lake was dyed red with blood, and the sound of the flute stopped abruptly. Then, the sound of the flute changed abruptly, making people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. The fish at the bottom of the lake no longer killed each other. Instead, they licked each other's wounds, becoming exceptionally harmonious. In the valley, the eyes of the 20-odd people had turned red. They were on the verge of killing each other, but after hearing the sound of the flute, they calmed down. Fortunately, Yi Qinghan was not targeting them. He was only experimenting with the fish in the lake. Otherwise, this group of people would definitely have killed each other. So the sound of the flute can control souls. The weaker the enemy's soul, the easier it is to control them. Yi Qinghan put away the flute and thought to himself. This was a spiritual artifact that eternal sovereigns had sacrificed their souls to for countless years, so its power was bound to be far greater than this. If one wanted to display its greatest power, they would have to accumulate experience over many years. It might take 30 to 50 years, 300 to 500 years, or even 1,000 years. Yi Qinghan wasn't in a hurry. He put away the green bamboo flute and prepared to return to the valley, but the little girl ran over to pick up the dead fish. "Don't eat these dead fish. The evil aura they exuded before they died is too strong. They are filled with killing aura and lack spirituality. Eating them won't benefit you at all," Yi Qinghan reminded indifferently. The little girl curled her lips and retracted her hand. She made a face at Yi Qinghan before running back to the valley. Yi Qinghan smiled and followed into the valley. "Let's enter the city to eat something and buy some pills." "I don't have any pills on me now," Yi Qinghan said to Gu Qingyu and company. "Let's go. I'll be the host." "No one is more familiar with Holy City than me," said Sword 13 with a smile. Yi Qinghan smiled and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you, Brother 13. The five quickly set up a formation in the cave and sped into the city. There was a sea of people in the city. Most of them had come on a pilgrimage, hoping to be touched by some fortune. They were all smiles and completely unguarded. They didn't look like they were roaming the Jianghu, but more like they were looking for treasures. Everyone knew that this was a joyous occasion for the eternal Sword Dao sacred land. Anyone who dared to make a move here, even a holy son of the sacred land, would be pulled down. Sword 13 led Yi Qinghan and the others through the crowd. However, they still couldn't squeeze into a restaurant even after passing through a dozen or so restaurants. The line stretched all the way to the entrance. Looks like you guys won't have the luck to eat, Sword 13 shrugged and mocked himself. Yi Qinghan and the others didn't mind. They found a restaurant outside and casually ate some mundane food. It was a different kind of flavor. Just as the five of them were eating and chatting, a cold wind suddenly appeared behind them. The killing intent was so condensed that it was tangible. This aura had only appeared on Yan Yunbei before. However, the strength of this aura was obviously stronger than Yan Yunbei's. Yi Qinghan immediately turned to look behind him and saw a person dressed in black with a black cloth on his head. He was about 1.78 meters tall and thin. It was hard to tell if he was a man or a woman. His entire body was wrapped like a shroud, giving off a sense of fatal threat. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but clench his fists, not daring to relax in the slightest. Who is he? Yi Qinghan looked at Sword 13 and secretly transmitted his voice. A trace of doubt appeared in Sword 13's eyes. He murmured, he could be a dark walker. However, this person never walks in the day. No one knows his true identity, so I'm not sure. Which faction is he from? He can't be one of Xia Jiulong's subordinates, can he? Yi Qinghan frowned and asked. Sword 13 immediately replied, don't worry. The Dark Walker is a lone wolf. I don't know his inheritance, but he's definitely not one of the 9 Dragons Crown Prince's men. Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. If he were to be stared at by such a person, he would probably not be able to sleep or eat in peace. Only the experts noticed this black-clothed man. The others walked past him as if nothing had happened. They didn't feel anything at all. The black-clothed man calmly passed by the 5 of them. He only glanced at Yi Qinghan and the others indifferently. Then, he quickly walked into the depths. His footsteps seemed slow, but in fact, he appeared 100 meters away in 3 breaths. He's going to the Sword Dao sect, Sword 13 said hesitantly. Yi Qinghan suddenly recalled the words that the Chess Supreme had transmitted to him. He threw the things in his hands onto the table and said, pay the bill. After paying the bill, Yi Qinghan quickly followed and said to Sword 13, let's go to the Sword Dao sect. I want to visit the Chess Supreme. Sword 13 hurriedly reminded him, brother, it's not that I don't want to take you there, but Uncle Master Chess Supreme has already gone into seclusion and won't see anyone. If you want to see him, you'll probably have to wait until the ceremony. Yi Qinghan smiled and said, I'm not shamelessly asking to see him. I'm going to meet him on his orders. Only then did Sword 13 lead the 4 of them and rush towards the Sword Dao sect. Half a day later, at the foot of the Sword Dao sect, the 5 of them slowed down and walked towards the sacred chess peak. The sacred chess peak was peaceful. Until now, it was bathed in holy light and shrouded in the mysteries of the great Tao. It was a blessing to take a look at it. Many young talents were comprehending the great Tao at the foot of the mountain. Even Xia Jiulong was sitting in the distance, comprehending the supreme Tao techniques of the world. Yi Qinghan came to meet the Chess Supreme by imperial decree. No one stopped him and he climbed all the way to the top of the sacred chess peak. The entire mountain top was cut off, and a huge temple sat on the mountain top. Chapter 2002. Jian Shisan stood at the back, side by side with Gu Qingyu and the others. Only Yi Qinghan stood at the door. He bowed and said, "I'm here to meet the chess saint under the orders of the senior." No sound came from the hall. Everyone watching from afar had strange smiles on their faces, especially Xia Jiulong. He mocked, "This person is so confident that he's brainless. This is the time when the chess saint is comprehending eternity. Time is so precious that he doesn't even meet the other saints. Does he really not know, or is he pretending not to know?" He came to disturb the chess saint, and Jian Shirshan didn't stop him. If the upper echelons of the Holy Land of Swordsmanship knew about this, these 5 people who disturbed the saint's comprehension would probably be sentenced to death. "When the time comes, your highness won't even have to do anything," Xian Xiu bowed and whispered. Xia Jiulong smiled coldly and waved his hand. "Go and inform the upper echelons of the Holy Land of Swordsmanship. It's best to alert the eternal saint of swordsmanship. I want to see a good show today." "Yes." Xian Xiu bowed and left. There was silence on the sacred chess peak. The sacred chess venerate did not seem to hear the commotion outside, nor did he hear Yi Qinghan's request for an audience. Yi Qinghan stood respectfully and did not move. However, Jian Shirshan was a little flustered. He quickly ran forward and pulled Yi Qinghan's sleeve. He whispered, "Brother, don't get me in trouble. Did Uncle Master really summon you?" Yi Qinghan nodded and whispered back, "Of course it's true. Would I joke about something like this?" Jian Shirshan was still a little worried. He said, "Let's leave first. When Uncle Master comes out, he will naturally summon you. Otherwise, disturbing the eternal saint's seclusion is a crime punishable by death." Yi Qinghan hesitated. Just as he was about to leave, a deep and gentle voice came from the hall. "Come in." Creak, the door opened automatically. The hall was dazzling, shining like stars. It was like chess pieces were moving. It contained the heavenly ways, reincarnation, and nature's mystical methods. Even an unparalleled expert would be lost in it. Yi Qinghan quickly stepped into the hall and followed a passageway that led deep into the palace. The palace was only 100 feet long, but after walking for a few hundred meters, he still hadn't reached the end. After walking for about a kilometer, a bright light appeared in front of them. Yi Qinghan increased his speed and stepped out of the tunnel. In front of him was a completely different valley. It was as beautiful as a fairyland. Immortal cranes soared into the sky, spiritual birds soared into the sky, and ancient vicious beasts were actually as gentle as kittens, respectfully looking at a white-haired elder. The elder was none other than Chess Venerable Saint. He sat on a huge chessboard, as if the earth was his chessboard and the mountains were his chess pieces. He moved the mountains and rivers in a majestic manner. A waterfall hung in the air, descending from the sky. It was like a flowing river of stars, and the floating mist was like immortal qi. Yi Qinghan was dumbfounded. He never thought that there would be such a place in sacred chess peak. Whoosh! The chessboard beneath Chess Venerable Saint rapidly shrank to about the size of 3 houses. He sat in the middle of the world river, and the chess pieces on the chessboard were engraved with ancient script. Although it was the simplest Chinese chess, it contained all kinds of changes. Even a single move could cause the world to change colors. "Come here." Chess Venerable Saint's words and actions were adhered to. It was just a simple sentence, but it made Yi Qinghan's body involuntarily fly towards the chessboard. Yi Qinghan couldn't even control his own body. Yi Qinghan was appalled. At that moment, he understood how strong and terrifying an eternal being was. Compared to a middle-level or high-level eternal being, it was like the difference between a deity and an ordinary mortal. A single thought of an eternal being could kill thousands of high-level eternal beings. "Senior. Why did you summon me?" Yi Qinghan landed on one end of the chessboard and asked in surprise. An existence like an eternal being didn't seem to have anything to do with Yi Qinghan, who was at the middle-level eternal being. The vision of such an existence seemed to only look at existences of the same level. At that moment, Yi Qinghan was also confused. You are the first to meet an eternal being who doesn't kneel. Chess Venerable Saint slowly stood up. His white hair fluttered, and his white robes were like snow. He was like an immortal, so strong that he could split the heavens with a wave of his hand. However, he didn't give Yi Qinghan any pressure when he stood in front of him. This was the state of mind. Other than Green Lotus Sword Immortal, only Chess Venerable Saint could do this. No one in the world dares to disrespect the might of a sage. I have always been in awe of the Chess Venerable. The sage naturally wouldn't be impressed by my kneeling. Yi Qinghan bowed respectfully as he replied. Ha ha ha. I knew it. Your mouth can make the dead come alive. Your brain is full of schemes. Chess Venerable Saint laughed heartily. Yi Qinghan laughed awkwardly as he waited for Chess Venerable Saint to explain his purpose for summoning him. However, Chess Venerable Saint didn't say anything else. Instead, he gestured with his hand and said, I didn't summon you for any other reason. I just feel that you are different, so I want to play a game of chess with you. A black line appeared on Yi Qinghan's forehead. He smiled bitterly and said, Saint, please don't put me down. Your chess skills have already reached the pinnacle of perfection. How can my half-baked skills catch your eye? However, Chess Venerable Saint wasn't prepared to let Yi Qinghan off. Instead, he said truthfully, I just want to see how the most treacherous person in the world moves differently from an ordinary person. Actually, I wanted to play a game of chess with you the first time you entered the Sword Principle sect. However, time didn't allow for it. In addition, I wasn't familiar with you, so I delayed it until now. Yi Qinghan was speechless. He asked in return, Sage, why don't you use vulgarities when you scold me? How am I the most treacherous person? Chess Venerable Saint laughed and walked to the other side of the chessboard. He said with a smile, you know best whether my evaluation is true or not. In fact, being the most treacherous person isn't a derogatory term. To me, it's an evaluation of a formidable person. Or rather, I'm praising you. Yi Qinghan's forehead broke out in cold sweat. He thought to himself, this old man's soul is probably beyond my reach. He can see through my origin and even detect my thoughts. A person's thoughts are unpredictable. A person's heart is like water and can change at will. However, a person's expression can be deciphered. A person's eyes will always betray their heart. The first time I saw you, I knew that you would be an outstanding person in the future. You will have people with great strategies by your side to assist you. You will have a general who can charge and break through enemy lines. As long as you don't die early, you will definitely have a share of this world. Sure enough, Chess Venerable Saint saw through Yi Qinghan's thoughts. Or rather, he saw through the essence of Yi Qinghan's eyes. Yi Qinghan suddenly wanted to escape. He felt uncomfortable being under the old man's gaze. It was like a beautiful woman standing naked in front of a pervert. Don't even think about running. I summoned you from afar just to play a game of chess with you. Otherwise, how could a small force like your arrogant sect receive an invitation personally written by the Sword Principle Eternal Sage? Chess Venerable Saint said faintly. Chapter 2003. Chess Venerate Saint waved his hand and the chessboard changed. The two of them were suddenly placed in the Milky Way. The heavens and earth were the board, and the stars were the chess pieces. The chessboard was filled with an imposing aura that made one's ambition soar. Yi Qinghan was in the chessboard and could not even see the overall situation, let alone play chess with the chess saint. He looked confused and pondered for a long time. The first move was standard. The cannon was placed in the center like an old tree, controlling the overall situation. Chess Venerate Saint waved his hand and moved the stars. The Milky Way surged, and the two pawns on the left were like divine dragons emerging from the sea, suppressing the heavens. No one dared to make the slightest move. Yi Qinghan knew that his chess skills were miles apart from the chess saints. If he wanted to win or lose in a way that was not too embarrassing, he could not play according to the rules. Therefore, he took the opponent's horse, then mounted the horse, set out the chariot, and set up a formation with the chess saint. He killed whoever he caught and kept changing the pieces. Blood flowed like a river on the chessboard. However, overall, the chess saint had twice as many pieces as Yi Qinghan. The chess saint looked at Yi Qinghan in anger and scolded, "Can you use your brain? Why don't you play some tricks?" Yi Qinghan smiled and said, "Venerable one, when two armies are facing each other and there is a great disparity in strength, one can either retreat and avoid the brunt of the attack, or attack forcefully and destroy the enemy's morale and retreat. Even if one loses, one has to bite off a pair of the enemy's arms. My chess skills are not as good as yours, but this is how it is on the battlefield. You use the heavens and earth as your board, the stars as your chess pieces, the Milky Way surging, and the Great Way first. Who in this world would dare to play chess with you? Who would be able to compete with you in chess? Even the Saint Lord of the Holy Empire would not dare to say that he could tie with you. I'm just a kid who is still wet behind the ears. How can I compete with you in chess? Since I'm bound to lose anyway, why not trade my life for yours? At least I won't be defeated by you and you won't suffer any losses in the end." Ha ha ha, the chess venerable laughed and his aura suddenly grew stronger. The way of the heavens changed and the sun and moon replaced each other. In a split second, day turned into night and the stars appeared in the night. The stars shifted their positions and the vast aura formed a wave like the roaring of the sea. "Yi Qinghan, I really didn't misjudge you. Anyone in the world would play by the rules when they play chess with me. They would even try to beat me by a move or two. Only you are special. You don't seek to win, but you seek to make this old man win even more miserably. You are treacherous and cunning. My evaluation of you is absolutely on point." The chess venerate saint's white hair fluttered in the wind, and his divine robe danced in the wind. His aura was otherworldly, and he suddenly regained his youth. The wrinkles on his face disappeared, and his white hair turned black. In an instant, he looked 1,000,000 years younger. His vitality was boundless, and he was like a newborn. His skin became smooth, and his qi and blood were renewed. Congratulations to the great sage for reaching the great sage realm. Yi Qinghan stared at the chess venerable as he changed the heavenly Tao and the galaxy. His eyes were filled with radiance, and he did not even blink. Time in this world sped up. In a moment, it seemed like 5,000 years had passed. The one-leaf civilization was born and then annihilated. The world was brand new again. Every moment, every breath, was the replacement of the great Tao. Yi Qinghan could see it clearly with his naked eye. This moment was better than 10,000,000 years of cultivation. He had shaved off 10,000,000 years of time for him to reach the great sage realm. At this moment, the chess venerable was truly comprehending the changes in the trajectory of the world, and the laws of the stars, sun, and moon. His obsession dissipated, and at this moment, he defeated everyone in the world and understood everyone in the world. Yi Qinghan was his last obsession, and it allowed him to understand that time was another type of careerist ideology, but it allowed him to comprehend the laws of the world. Whoosh! The firmament split, and the dome cracked. Holy light bathed the chess venerable and enveloped him. Yi Qinghan was mesmerized by the scene. He wished that the chess venerable could comprehend it for countless years. Such an opportunity was not available to everyone. However, the chess venerable's soul was boundless. He had already comprehended countless great Taos, and now he was only one step away. Therefore, after a moment, the stars returned to normal. The chessboard fell, and it spanned across the valley. The chess venerable landed in front of Yi Qinghan. He was like an immortal, benevolent, dignified, and reserved. His smile made people admire him and want to get close to him. Yi Qinghan was stunned and asked in surprise, "That's it? Do you think that the time it takes for a joss stick to burn is too little?" You must know that even the true disciples of my sacred ground did not have the chance to comprehend the phenomenon of heaven and earth that I created. You've taken advantage of me, the chess venerable said with a smile. Yi Qinghan's mind was in a mess, and he was speechless. He had comprehended a lot after watching for a while, but the time was too short. He felt like he was addicted to it, but he had to give it up immediately. The chess venerable sat on a huge rock and looked down at Yi Qinghan. He asked, "Little Yi, tell me, who is the person behind you?" Yi Qinghan shook his head and said, I can't say. A sage should have the bearing of a sage. You can't make things difficult for me. Looking at your evasive gaze, this old man can roughly guess the fear hidden in the depths of your heart. Since you're unwilling to speak, this old man won't force you either. However, you've got to think this through. Don't be used by others in the end. For someone like you, once you've grown to my level, if you're used by others, the lethality produced would definitely be frightening. At that time, don't let this old man kill you and suppress you. Although his words were plain, they made people shudder. Yi Qinghan could feel the chess venerable's will. Once he made a move, he would not show mercy. Yi Qinghan smiled embarrassedly and said respectfully, Don't worry, senior. I have always been a person who distinguishes between kindness and hatred. I will never reach out to the sacred ground of the sword way. Otherwise, even if you cut off my hand, I will not retaliate. The chess venerable nodded and asked, Have you become a disciple of that person from the sky-reaching school? No, I haven't even seen what he looks like. Senior Sister Fan Yin has always taught me some secret techniques, such as the 10-word formula and the shadowless cloud manipulation. I haven't cultivated any of the other secret techniques in the Immortal Codex, Yi Qinghan said honestly. The chess venerable asked with a smile, Why don't you learn chess from me? With your character, your future achievements will be limitless. Yi Qinghan shook his head like a rattledrum. Countless people had racked their brains to get a spot, but he had rejected it. Venerable One, it's not that I don't want to, but I just can't sit still. The way of chess is really not suitable for me. If I become your disciple, I will definitely drag down your reputation. However, I do have someone who is very suitable for your legacy. I'm just afraid you won't like him, Yi Qinghan said truthfully. The chess venerable did not force him. He had seen through Yi Qinghan's nature. He was suitable for cultivation, but he might not be the best candidate for his legacy. However, finding a good successor was much harder than finding a genius. The chess venerable asked, Who are you referring to? You've seen him before. It's Yan Ao. Back then, he entered the holy nation's capital to send a message to Xia Jiulong. He is the most capable military saint by my side. He is good at deduction and can sit still. His wisdom is stronger than mine. As long as you teach him patiently, he might not surpass you, but he will definitely be on par with you, Yi Qinghan said confidently. The chess venerable nodded silently. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked into the distance. His gaze pierced through the shackles and he suddenly said, Let's go out. It's getting lively outside. Chapter 2004. Outside the main hall of the sacred chess peak, Lord Sword of the Sword Way Holy Land came with a few elders of the older generation. He frowned and reprimanded Jian Shirsan. Shirsan, how dare you bring people to disturb the venerable's seclusion at this critical moment? Can you bear the responsibility if an accident happens? Jian Shirsan quickly bowed and said, Senior brother sect master, it was martial uncle who summoned Yi Qinghan himself. Junior brother would never dare to offend the venerable's seclusion. When did he summon him? Why didn't I know? Lord Sword asked angrily. Jian Shirsan looked at Gu Qingyu and the others. He did not know how to answer and could only ask them. Esteemed sect master, when the chess saint sent out the invitation, he sent a message for our sect master to come and meet him. He also said, that he wants to play chess with him. If you don't believe me, you can ask the person who sent us the invitation to come and ask. Yan Ao bowed and cupped his fists. Whoosh! At this moment, the surrounding people were in an uproar. The chess saint was looking for Yi Qinghan to play chess. Wasn't this an eternal sovereign looking for a noob to fight? Xia Jiulong's expression changed. He clenched his fists and was very unwilling. Even if the chess saint wanted to find an opponent, he shouldn't look for someone like Yi Qinghan. Shouldn't the younger generation be looking for me? Xia Jiulong roared in a low voice. He was very unwilling. At this moment, the Nightwalker that Yi Qinghan and the others saw was walking up the sacred chess peak. No one could stop him. His slow footsteps contained profound mysteries. He was still in front of them, but in the next moment, he was 100 meters away. Nightwalker. Xia Jiulong knew at first glance that this person was a real Nightwalker. He was the only one with such strength in the world. Nightwalker. He is a Nightwalker. The experts of the older generation knew at a glance that this person was definitely a Nightwalker. He looked like an ordinary person, or even a mortal, without any fluctuation of divine power, but the killing intent in his body was enough to instantly annihilate an upper level. Lord Sword looked back at the Nightwalker who was quickly approaching. He pointed at Jian Shisan and coldly reprimanded, "We'll talk about you later. If the chess saint blames you, you won't be able to keep your saint position." Sword 13 didn't dare make a sound and could only wait slowly. The Nightwalker silently appeared at the top of the mountain. He didn't look at anyone. Instead, he stood at the door and said respectfully, "The Nightwalker is here to meet the chess saint." It turned out that the chess saint had not only summoned Yi Qinghan but also summoned the Dark Walker. Xia Jiulong's lips twitched. He restrained his anger and calmly waited for what would happen next. Whoosh! At that moment, the door to the hall opened. Chess Saint walked out with Yi Qinghan. He had a gentle look on his face like a benevolent grandpa that left people in awe. The moment the Chess Saint appeared, everyone knelt down, including Lord Sword. Back then, their relationship was that of fellow disciples, but now, it had become that of a martial uncle and martial nephew. Their relationship was completely determined by the changes in their cultivation levels. If Lord Sword were to attain eternity one day, their relationship would become that of fellow disciples. Greetings, Chess Saint. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, everyone stood up uncontrollably. Get up, all of you. There's no need to be restrained. Senior brother Honorable Lord, there's no need to punish the children. It was indeed this old man who asked them to come. It's fortunate that they came. 13 should be rewarded. Chess Venerate Saint smiled. Yes. Lord Sword's face was full of glory. For a saint to address him as Senior Brother Honorable Lord, his life was worth it. All of you may leave. Little Yezi, Yen Ao, and the Dark Walker, stay behind. This old man wishes to chat with all of you. Chess Venerate Saint's smile did not diminish as he gestured. Lord Sword and the rest bowed and left. Including Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and Jian Shisan, there were only 4 people left on the sacred chess peak. Yen Ao and the Dark Walker were more reserved as they stood at the side respectfully. Only Yi Qinghan's eyes were fixed on the Dark Walker. Chess Venerate Saint was in control of the entire situation. He saw everything that happened between the 3 of them. However, he did not say anything and continued to observe. After a long while, Chess Venerate Saint teased, "Little Yezi, the Dark Walker is a man. Aren't your eyes a little too strange?" Cough cough, Yi Qinghan coughed a few times and awkwardly shifted his gaze. He quickly said, "Esteemed Lord, please take a seat. This time, this junior has specially prepared some good tea and brewed some good wine for you. Consider it as this junior's filial piety." That's very thoughtful of you." Chess Venerate Saint slowly sat beside the round stone table. There was even a chessboard carved on the round table. As expected of the Chess Saint, his obsession with chess had reached the point of obsession. Fellow Taoist Dark Walker, Yen Ao, please take a seat as well. Don't stand on ceremony. Treat it as though you're home. Come and try the wine that I brewed. Although it's not the best in the world, it's still the most important thing. Yi Qinghan took on the role of the host and said without holding back. Yen Ao felt awkward when he heard this. The sage did not even speak. Who would dare to sit down? The Dark Walker snorted and ignored Yi Qinghan. Instead, he waited for Chess Venerate Saint to speak. Chess Venerate Saint laughed and said, "Sit down. Don't stand on ceremony. Let this old man introduce you." Whoosh! Chess Venerate Saint waved his hand and a boundary appeared on the sacred chess peak. It looked formless and formless. From the outside, the sacred chess peak did not seem to have changed. However, no sound could be heard from the inside. "Little Yi, let this old man introduce you. The Dark Walker follows the dark laws of heaven and earth and controls all the dark matter in the world. Although he lives in the dark night and does not appear in the mortal world, he is an arbiter who uses violence to curb violence. Anyone who angers the heavens will be judged by him." Chess Venerate Saint said plainly. Yi Qinghan was shocked and asked in surprise, "Sage, this duty, this power, who gave it to him?" "The heavens." The Dark Walker replied coldly. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank and looked at Chess Venerate Saint. However, he realized that Chess Venerate Saint had really nodded and acknowledged the Dark Walker's words. What he said is true. He carries out his duty on behalf of the heavens. The blade of judgment in his hand is a heavenly item. Other than him, no one can control it, including the eternal ones. Chess Venerate Saint explained in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan frowned and doubted the two's words. How could the heavens give a person such great power? "Sage, are you trying to scare me?" "Ha ha ha. Don't worry, don't scare me. I won't do anything that angers the heavens." Yi Qinghan laughed awkwardly. Chess Venerate Saint shook his head slightly and said, "Why would this old man scare you? If I was afraid that you would do something that angers the heavens in the future, I would just kill you now. Why would I scare you?" Yi Qinghan did not deny that if Chess Venerate Saint really wanted to kill him, he would not even need to lift a finger. A thought would be enough. However, he still refused to believe that there was someone in this world who carried out his duty on behalf of the heavens and ruled the world with violence. Only this old man knows about his duty by chance. Others do not. All the experts know that the Dark Walker is an assassin who specializes in killing evil people. He uses even more evil methods to judge evil people. However, they do not know that he is carrying out his power on behalf of the heavens. However, this old man will let you know today. I hope that you will understand your bottom line and never cross it. Chess Venerate Saint said sternly, "Take it as a warning." Yi Qinghan was speechless and asked in return, "Why are you taking such special care of me? Even if you want to warn someone, you should be warning Xia Jiulong. His talent and power are above mine. Because in this old man's opinion, your future is even more uncertain." Chess Venerate Saint smiled and said. Chapter 2005. Yi Qinghan was speechless as he looked at the Chess Supreme and the Nightwalker. He felt that the two of them were trying to scare him. How could there be an enforcer in this world? Ruling blade, a heaven artifact. It was just to scare a 3-year-old child. Yi Qinghan wasn't the only one who didn't believe it. Even Yen Ao was doubtful. At this moment, the divine bird slowly evolved from Yi Qinghan's bloodline. With a serious expression, it said, "To tell you the truth, this divine bird is also an enforcer in the name of heaven. This brother is the Nightwalker, but this divine bird is the Wise Walker. He uses the ruling blade, while this divine bird uses the ruling brain. My brain is definitely second only to the existence of heaven." Yi Qinghan snorted, "Get lost. It's fine if they're trying to scare me, but why are you adding to the trouble? The Nightwalker coldly glanced at the divine bird and slowly pulled out a flaming blade. It was hard to tell what grade it was, but it was obvious that it could easily tear apart Yi Qinghan's golden body of utmost holy. This is the ruling blade. Compared to the eternal sacred artifact, which do you think is better? Or this so-called divine bird's brain? The Nightwalker stared at Yi Qinghan and the divine bird and asked. Do we still use our fists to fight these days? We're all using our brains, you know. The divine bird's head shrank back as it looked at the ruling blade. The flames seemed to be real. Although it didn't get close, it could tell that it was a top-grade item. It wasn't willing to admit defeat as it muttered, who knows if this is just a fancy weapon that you created. It's fine to scare people, but if it's a real fight, it probably won't even break a piece of wood. The Nightwalker couldn't be bothered with the divine bird and directly put away the ruling blade. Although he didn't understand why the Chess Supreme had called him here, he was still willing to play along with him. However, Yi Qinghan was very knowledgeable. He knew that the ruling blade was definitely not an ordinary item. It was a bit like a work of the gods. He had never seen the eternal sacred artifact awakened, but when it wasn't, it might not be as fancy as the ruling blade. Yi Qinghan looked at the chess supremacy and said in a muffled voice, Exalted One, did you call me here to scare me with the name of the Nightwalker? No, no, no. Actually, the most important thing is to introduce the two of you to each other. The task of maintaining world peace will be handed over to the two of you, Chess Venerate Saint said half-jokingly. Stop bullshitting me. You're an eternal one, after all. Show your dignity as an eternal one. We're not fools. Do you think I can maintain world peace? Yi Qinghan asked in a self-deprecating manner. Then I won't talk about those useless things with you. I'll get straight to the point. I hope that you can sever all ties with the person behind you, Chess Venerate Saint said seriously. Why? Yi Qinghan asked with a frown. Those who are not of our race are bound to have different intentions. This old man does not wish to see the great world, which has been peaceful for countless years, become a place of misery and suffering. Venerated Chess Saint took a sip of tea and said faintly. Yi Qinghan laughed and said, You're being too serious. I don't have the ability to stir up such a storm in the world. Chess Venerate Saint's attitude changed abruptly. He suddenly changed the way he spoke and even excluded the Nightwalker and Yen Ao. He said coldly, the person behind you should be someone from outside the great world. For you to help her so wholeheartedly, she must be a woman. Furthermore, she must be a great beauty. This old man doesn't need to guess to know who she is. She's the Green Lotus Sword Immortal. Do you know how great her enmity with the great world is? Do you know how powerful she is? She might be using you. Don't end up being betrayed and still helping her count the money. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed as he looked at Chess Venerate Saint in shock. He did not expect Chess Venerate Saint's intelligence to be so strong. In just half a day's time, Chess Venerate Saint was able to deduce that the person behind him was the Green Lotus Sword Immortal. Chess Venerate Saint looked into Yi Qinghan's eyes and transmitted his voice again, You don't have to speak. I can see what you're thinking. From your expression, I know that the person behind you is indeed the Green Lotus Sword Immortal. You might not understand her, but let me tell you. She's the true #1 expert in the world. Even the Saint Empire's sacred master is not her match. Although I have not seen their battle, I know one thing, and that is that the Green Lotus Sword Immortal has killed an eternal sovereign before. However, the Saint Empire's sacred master does not have the ability to do so. Yi Qinghan's hands were trembling. He felt that Chess Venerate Saint was too perverted. The Nightwalker is the person closest to the heavens. He told me that the heavens are about to change, and humans cannot change them. Therefore, I have never thought of informing the Holy Empire to get rid of the Green Lotus Sword Immortal in advance because I know that the heavens will only become messier as it changes. You don't understand now, but when you reach my level and look up at the sky, you will be able to see the trajectory of the stars, the sun, and the moon. Although it is very vague, it is very accurate. The Milky Way is surging, and darkness is about to descend. Yi Qinghan remained silent. The changing of the heavens had nothing to do with him. Let's follow the will of the heavens. Venerable Master should be able to understand that my relationship with Xia Jiulong is just like that. The holy empires will decline after reaching their peak, and this cycle will repeat itself. If their luck is exhausted, there will be someone to replace them. With just you and me, it's impossible to change it. Even if I don't do it, or if the Green Lotus Sword Immortal doesn't do it, there will be another demon to do it. Yi Qinghan transmitted his voice silently. Chess Venerate Saint didn't say anything else. He glanced at Yi Qinghan and sighed after a long time. He continued to drink his tea and didn't say anything else. After a while, Chess Venerate Saint waved his hand and said, "All of you may leave. I will play a game of chess with Yen Ao." Yi Qinghan and Nightwalker bowed and left, giving this old man the highest respect. When they were halfway up the mountain, Yi Qinghan smiled and said, "Nightwalker, let me take a look at your blade of judgment. I want to see what a so-called heaven artifact is." Nightwalker coldly glanced at Yi Qinghan and snorted, "Are you awake? TSK, stingy. My boss wants to see your blade of judgment. That's giving you face. You don't know what's good for you. I'll let you see this divine bird's brain of judgment next time. I'll let you see what a true wise almighty is," the divine bird proudly retorted. Yi Qinghan shook his head. He didn't know the identity of Nightwalker, but he was sure that this fellow was related to Chess Venerate Saint. Therefore, he didn't want to offend him and left with the divine bird. At the foot of the mountain, Xia Jiulong and Xian Xiu stood in the plaza, coldly looking at Yi Qinghan. "Oh, isn't this the crown prince? Why are you so free today? You actually came to the foot of the mountain to welcome me. I'm really ashamed." Yi Qinghan gave a devilish smile. Xia Jiulong put on a fake smile and walked in front of Yi Qinghan. He smiled and said, "This is the first time I've met an opponent like you. However, you have to understand that if I want someone to die, that person will definitely not be able to escape. You've stirred up my interest. I dare to guarantee that you won't live to see the start of the celebration. Do you believe me?" "Ha ha ha." Yi Qinghan laughed loudly and put his hand on Xia Jiulong's shoulder like an old friend. However, he said in an even more domineering tone, "I really don't believe you. Xia Jiulong, don't think too highly of yourself. Isn't it just the crown prince? I'm not afraid because I have many subordinates. I'll wait and see how you kill me." Chapter 2006. Yi Qinghan hugged the crown prince, looking like an old friend. Both of them had smiles on their faces, but both of them were filled with murderous intent, fighting openly and covertly. Xia Jiulong gently pushed Yi Qinghan's arm away. He didn't seem to have any ill intentions. When the people around them saw this, they really thought that Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong's relationship was so good. They were all quite surprised. Yi Qinghan is really lucky. He obtained the immortal medicine early on, and now he's been summoned by the saint alone. Now, he's on such good terms with the crown prince. He'll definitely soar in the future. Who doesn't know about the crown prince's arrogance? I'm afraid he's the only one in the younger generation who can catch his eye, except for Fan Yin. A few older experts from the sacred grounds exclaimed and discussed. Xia Jiulong was the most likely person in the younger generation to become an eternal being. The older generation had a different opinion of him. It was rare for an eternal being to appear in a million years. Other than the Saint Chess Venerate, who else in the world could break through to that level? "Let's have a drink when you're free. I hope the crown prince will do me the honor," Yi Qinghan said loudly, then turned and left. Xia Jiulong smiled insincerely at Yi Qinghan's back. "I hope there's a chance. At that moment, the Nightwalker walked down from the St. Chess Peak. He was about to leave the Sword Dao sect when he was stopped by Xia Jiulong. "Fellow Daoist, give me 5 minutes. I need your help with something." "Feel free to state your conditions," Xia Jiulong said in a low voice. The Nightwalker used to earn money by taking on missions. Killing people was the most normal thing for him. However, most of the people he killed had reached his target, so he didn't hurt the innocent. In recent years, he had disappeared without a trace. Everyone in the world thought that he was dead. The Nightwalker glanced at Xia Jiulong indifferently and replied in a low voice, "What can't the Crown Prince do? Let's go to the side yard for a chat. As long as you complete this mission, you probably won't need to take any more missions in the future," Xia Jiulong said indifferently. With that, Xia Jiulong turned and walked towards his side yard. The Nightwalker hesitated for a moment, but still followed him. In Xia Jiulong's courtyard, all the servants had been dismissed. Even the mystic wasn't present. There were only 2 of them. Xia Jiulong sat in the pavilion and gestured for the Nightwalker to sit down. The Nightwalker was completely wrapped up, and only his eyes could be seen. He looked at Xia Jiulong and calmly said, "Just tell me the mission. If you can accept it, then accept it. If not, then I'll leave. Kill Yi Qinghan tonight. As long as you can kill him, just say the word and I won't even frown," Xia Jiulong said in a low voice. The Nightwalker raised his eyebrows and replied indifferently, "He hasn't broken the rules yet, so he's not one of my targets. So, I won't accept this mission. Find someone else." With that, the Nightwalker turned around and left. Xia Jiulong hurriedly stood up and said, "Dark Walker, since he's going to die anyway, why don't you give him a quick death? As for whether or not he's your target, that's not important." "Of course it's important. The weapon in my hand only kills those within its range. That's been my principle for so many years. I've never broken it," the Nightwalker said firmly. "Even if I break the rules once for this emperor, I can break the rules 10 times for you in the future." Xia Jiulong said in a low voice. The Nightwalker still shook his head and said indifferently, "You don't understand. Find someone else. If one day he becomes my target, you don't need to pay me a single dime. I'll kill him without hesitation." With that, the Nightwalker resolutely left the courtyard. Xia Jiulong took a deep breath and clenched his fists. The haze in his eyes was especially thick. In this world, only the Nightwalker and Fan Yin couldn't control him. Now, there was another Yi Qinghan. This had seriously infuriated Xia Jiulong. "If I want to kill someone, no one can escape. That includes you, Nightwalker. You've repeatedly rejected this emperor's good intentions and recruitment. You must be tired of living," Xia Jiulong said with a muffled snort. Yi Qinghan found Gu Qingyu and Jiang Jingtian and said many good words for Jian Shersan. Only then did revered Lord Sword's expression improve. "Where are you living now?" Revered Lord Sword asked in a dignified manner. "We're living in a cave." "Revered Lord, do you want to arrange a better courtyard for us to live alone?" Yi Qinghan immediately took advantage of the situation and asked. Revered Lord Sword suddenly widened his eyes and said in a muffled voice, "Young people should endure more hardships. As the saying goes, when one is strong and healthy, one must first work one's muscles and bones. You're all used to enjoying life, so you should learn to endure hardships. Just live in the cave. If you don't have a room, just say it." Yi Qinghan shook his head and looked at the periphery of the Sword Principal sect. Many temporary buildings had been built outside the sect, which seriously affected the beauty of the Sword Principal sect. It was normal that revered Lord Sword didn't want to build a house for a few juniors, so he didn't say much and left the Sword Principal sect with Gu Qingyu and the others. Sword 13 had a bitter smile on his face. Now that he was the holy son of a holy land, he had clearly become a punching bag for others to vent their anger on. Everything had to be done with him to show off their might, to give others a show of strength, but there was not a single good thing that happened. The four of them walked all the way and came to the elixir pavilion to buy a large number of high-level sacred elixirs to replenish their storage rings. A day passed just like that. The sky was about to turn dark, so they returned to the valley. In the evening, the night was alluring, and the moonlight shone on the mortal world. Fan Yin walked into the city and looked at Yi Qinghan's living environment. Not only did she not feel sorry for him, but she was also gloating. Young people are different. They know how to enjoy life. Such a fairyland, with mountains, water, and moonlight. It's much better than my room. Fan Yin laughed crisply. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and snorted. Senior sister, do you want to sleep with me in this fairyland and experience the various forms of life? That's not necessary. Fan Yin signaled Yi Qinghan with her eyes, and the two of them entered the cave together. She then said, "Be careful tonight. Xia Jiulong has found a dark walker. I guess he might attack you." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and sealed the cave with a boundary. He directly pressed Fan Yin under his body and smiled evilly. "Senior sister, will you stay and fight the enemy with me?" Smack! Fan Yin reached out and slapped Yi Qinghan's perverted hands away. She snorted. "What time is it now? You still can't act properly." Yi Qinghan grinned. "As far as I know, the Dark Walker won't attack me. Either Xia Jiulong attacks personally, or I'll be safe tonight." "Why?" Fan Yin asked in surprise. "It's hard to explain. Anyway, I know that I'm not the Dark Walker's target. If Xia Jiulong attacks personally, he'll definitely choose to assassinate me. Now that we're in the middle of a grand ceremony, he won't look for trouble. Once the assassination fails, he'll automatically retreat. He won't attack by force. So if you and I work together, he'll retreat." Yi Qinghan explained. Fan Yin was a little suspicious. She didn't seem to know much about the Dark Walker. She only knew that the Dark Walker was in existence with a single lineage. Yi Qinghan pressed Fan Yin under his body and looked down at her. The moonlight spilled into the cave, making it hazy but adding to the beauty. Chapter 2007. Yi Qinghan still wanted to ask for more, but he was kicked out by Fan Yin. "You still want to mess around at a time like this? My reputation is going to be ruined by you. If Xia Jiulong blocks the two of us in the cave today, I don't want to live anymore," Fan Yin said unhappily. "Hey, senior sister, if he dares to enter the cave, I will break his bones," Yi Qinghan said confidently. Xia Jiulong was definitely no match for him in terms of physical strength in such a narrow space. "Don't talk nonsense. I can't let him see me here with you. Otherwise, if it spreads out, where will the face of my sky-reaching school be?" Fan Yin angrily rebuked, "Since you dare to guarantee that the Nightwalker won't take action, I will leave first. If you are killed by Xia Jiulong, you can only say that you are destined to die early. You can't blame others. Senior sister. Are you just going to watch me fight against Xia Jiulong alone? If he has a background, won't I die in vain?" Yi Qinghan looked at Fan Yin pitifully and said. Fan Yin had no choice but to take out a red thread. It was her natal magic treasure, the pulling thread. "Give me your hand," Fan Yin said angrily. Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand. Fan Yin tied the thread on his wrist, tied it into a beautiful bow, and hid it in the cuff. "Don't expose it first. If you catch Xia Jiulong off guard, you may be able to lock him. Even if you can't succeed, when he sees the pulling thread in your hand, he will have to retreat. Because once the pulling thread is triggered, it will fully recover. At that time, more than one eternal expert will be alarmed." Fan Yin whispered, "The rest is up to you. If you are killed like this, it means that you should have died long ago. I am leaving." After saying that, Fan Yin turned around and left the cave, leaving Yi Qinghan alone in the cave with a wry smile. The valley at night was not quiet, because many people were camping around, waiting for the celebration to see the sage. It was only in the wee hours of the morning that a deathly stillness ensued. Yi Qinghan was holding his flute with several pills in his mouth. He was on high alert because his opponent was the strongest of the younger generation. Even Fan Yin was no match for him. The night before dawn was so quiet that even the sound of the wind could be heard clearly. Hum! Suddenly, the bamboo flute trembled. It was very slight, as if it was just an illusion. However, Yi Qinghan knew that this was absolutely not an illusion. This flute was specially refined by the Green Lotus Sword Immortal and had been used as a sacrifice for countless years. It had long since gained sentience, just like the wooden sword. Once it gave off a warning, there would be danger. Yi Qinghan's soul wandered in all directions, but he couldn't find the enemy. Yi Qinghan blew his flute, and the low melodious sound spread out in all directions. It pierced through the enchantment and spread to all the big caves, covering a radius of 10 miles. Every blade of grass and every tree was transmitted back. Why are you playing the flute in the middle of the night? Are you crazy? Some people kept cursing, but they knew that Yi Qinghan was too strong, so they didn't dare to go forward and question him. The sound of the flute changed from melodious to violent and murderous. It was as if there was an ambush on all sides, with murderous intent everywhere. No one dared to leave the cave, and they all stayed obediently in the cave. However, after the sound of the flute spread for a long time, they still couldn't find Xia Jiulong's location. If Xia Jiulong wanted to hide himself, no one could find him except for the top upper-level cultivators. The sound of the flute continued to rise and fall, spreading to every corner. Even the image of a rock was transmitted back. Only Xia Jiulong's image was not transmitted back. But at this moment, Yi Qinghan was 100% certain that someone was watching his cave. At the lake on the left side of the valley, a person stood on the water's surface. He didn't have any aura, and even his voice couldn't be heard. He was faintly discernible and extremely terrifying. This person was dressed in black, with a loose robe covering his entire body and even his face. Only a pair of bright eyes were staring at Yi Qinghan's cave. That pair of eyes was especially cold, without any aura of life, like the stars in the sky. If Yi Qinghan walked out of the cave, he would be able to find him and confirm that this person was Xia Jiulong. Xia Jiulong had a short sword hidden in his sleeve. He didn't even have a scabbard. He could strike at any time to kill with one strike. Yi Qinghan didn't walk out of the cave, and Xia Jiulong didn't take the risk to enter the cave to assassinate him. Both sides waited silently. Whoever couldn't hold back first would definitely lose. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The sound of a few poisonous snakes slithering broke the coldness of the flute sound, making it even more terrifying. Hundreds of vines swam out of Yi Qinghan's cave and surrounded the cave, then extended in all directions. In the blink of an eye, they covered half of the valley. Splash! Xia Jiulong's body gradually sank into the water, leaving only a pair of eyes outside. Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and Jian Shisan's cave all took out their weapons and leaned against the stone wall. Their bodies were bent, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Yi Qinghan's flute sound didn't die out. It had already notified them that there was killing intent. The sound of the flute was terrifying. Finally, someone couldn't hold back and rushed out of the cave, shouting, "Yi Qinghan, you can't run amok just because you're strong. It's the middle of the night. Can't you let people rest?" Whoosh! One of the startwining vines seized the air, shattered the void, and directly locked onto that person's throat, almost piercing through his body. However, it quickly loosened because he wasn't Xia Jiulong. That person was so frightened by the reaction of the startwining vine that his legs went soft. He hurriedly retreated into the cave. His face was pale, and his breathing was rapid. He was almost scared out of his wits. The little girl and her brother who lived on the right side of Yi Qing Han also had some panic in their eyes because tonight was too abnormal. The little girl looked at her brother and asked in fear, "Brother, what are they doing?" Her brother was in the middle level after all, so he still had this bit of patience. He hurriedly pulled the little girl and said, "Don't go out. It's dangerous outside." Time passed slowly. The night covered the stars and the full moon. One couldn't even see one's own fingers. Xia Jiulong slowly flew out of the water without a single drop of water on him. He flashed a few times and appeared opposite Yi Qinghan's cave. He crouched behind a rock in the valley and took out a cloud crossbow. This kind of crossbow could kill an upper-level cultivator and destroy the entire valley. "Since you don't want to come out, then I'll let you die in the cave. Consider it a burial for you, so as to avoid your corpse lying in the wilderness." Xia Jiulong snorted coldly. He waved his hand and a gloomy crossbow arrow appeared. He placed it on the cloud crossbow, and killing intent leaked out. Finally, he couldn't hide anymore. Yi Qinghan's pores exploded. He knew that if he didn't go out, he would definitely die in the cave. Therefore, he didn't think too much. He blasted a palm through the barrier and slapped toward Xia Jiulong who was above the valley. Boom! Flames covered Xia Jiulong's location. Yi Qinghan used stellar transposition and left the cave. He shouted, "Everyone, get out of the cave." Wu Jian Shisan, Gu Qingyu, and the others quickly rushed out and threw their weapons. They smashed through the mountain rocks and rushed toward Xia Jiulong. However, Xia Jiulong seemed to have already known Yi Qinghan's actions. The moment Yi Qinghan appeared, he put away the cloud crossbow. A short sword appeared in his sleeve, and he took the air. The short sword tore through the void and attacked Yi Qinghan's throat. Chapter 2008. Xia Jiulong moved like a ferocious tiger in lightning. The sword in his hand shook the great Tao of heaven and earth. The darkness was torn apart, and the sun and moon appeared at the same time. This sword could destroy a transcendent upper plane cultivator. In the blink of an eye, it was about to pierce Yi Qinghan's throat. Yi Qinghan's reaction was fast. His body twisted and his footsteps intertwined. He retreated slightly, and the Rui bell appeared in his palm. It expanded infinitely and enveloped Xia Jiulong within. Boom! The Rui bell flipped the sky and enveloped half of the valley. It directly pressed down, and the ground shook as the valley collapsed. Ring! Whoosh! However, Xia Jiulong was not suppressed by the Rui bell. Instead, he appeared behind Yi Qinghan and stabbed his sword at the back of Yi Qinghan's neck. Boom! Boom! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stomped his foot, and his body soared into the clouds. However, he felt a chill on his back. The sword had already torn through his divine robes and touched his skin. His holy golden body felt a burning pain. Even Shadowless couldn't escape from Xia Jiulong's 9 transformations of the stars. Seeing that his neck was about to be pierced, Yi Qinghan roared and kicked out with his right foot. He reached behind him and grabbed the dagger. Both sides were injured, but Xia Jiulong didn't seem to care about his kick. He stabbed out with his dagger, and sword chi filled the air. The law of destruction enveloped Yi Qinghan. At that moment, the string on Yi Qinghan's wrist transformed into a myriad of transformations. It enveloped the dagger and then shot toward Xia Jiulong, wanting to bind him as well. Ah! Although Yi Qinghan's hand grabbed the dagger, it was torn apart by the sharp sword chi. The flesh in his palm turned into flesh and blood, leaving only his bones. Like a divine weapon, even the dagger could not quickly destroy them. However, the tearing pain from his soul made him roar in anger. It shook the mountains and rivers, and alarmed the masters from thousands of miles away. Boom! Yi Qinghan's right hand was crippled, but that kick was real. It landed on Xia Jiulong's lower abdomen. Xia Jiulong forcibly resisted. He wanted to continue stabbing and take down Yi Qinghan in one fell swoop. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! At this moment, after the string wrapped around the dagger, it pressed down on Xia Jiulong's wrist. He was so frightened that he hurriedly let go of the dagger. He didn't even have time to retrieve the dagger as he immediately fled thousands of miles away. If he didn't leave now, it would be too late. The sword sovereign of the Sword Dao Holy Land was flying over with his sword. Yi Qinghan let out a long sigh of relief. Because the binding thread had bound the dagger and turned it into a blunt sword, its lethality had been greatly reduced. It had reduced the pressure on Yi Qinghan by more than half. Otherwise, the dagger would have definitely pierced through his neck. Who dares to cause trouble at my Holy Land's grand ceremony? Honorable swordsman unsheathed his master god's sword. 10,000 swords returned to origin. He appeared near Yi Qinghan like a sword god. Seeing Xia Jiulong flee, his eyes flashed, but he did not chase after him. Yi Qinghan's bloody right arm was a mess of flesh and blood. Especially his 5 fingers, they were all bone white. It was extremely frightening. Just one sword was enough to injure Yi Qinghan to this extent. If it was someone from the younger generation, that person's identity could almost be confirmed. However, no one dared to guarantee that this was done by someone from the younger generation. Even though Honorable Swordsman had seen Xia Jiulong's back, he couldn't say anything without concrete evidence. Honorable Swordsman looked at Yi Qinghan gripping the dagger with a ferocious expression. He asked in a low voice, "Are you all right?" Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. His 5 fingers were bathed in divine light. His flesh wriggled, and order reassembled. Even a paragon saint's body couldn't recover quickly. Xia Jiulong's sword energy contained too many profound mysteries of destruction. It would take a long time for him to recover. "I'm fine. I won't die yet." Yi Qinghan endured the pain and retracted the string. He gripped the dagger tightly in his hand. The divine sword whistled, wanting to leave him and return to Xia Jiulong's side. However, Yi Qinghan wouldn't allow it. He forcibly restrained it, took out his bamboo flute, and used his soul to attack the dagger's soul, wiping out Xia Jiulong's spiritual consciousness. In the distance, Xia Jiulong clutched his abdomen. Yi Qinghan's kick wasn't light. He had also endured the loss of blood flow and forcefully attacked. Now, he was indeed injured. However, if it weren't for the string, he could have easily destroyed Yi Qinghan. That damned Fanine. How dare he wrap the string around his wrist and ruin my plan? Xia Jiulong held his abdomen with his large hand, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Suddenly, his head exploded, and he spat out a mouthful of blood essence. This time, Xia Jiulong was truly enraged. This time, he wasn't injured physically, but his soul. The spiritual consciousness he had planted in the dagger had been forcefully wiped out. It was equivalent to having a piece of his soul torn apart. Although it wasn't much, it was still a soul. Damn it. Was it Supremacy Sword who helped him wipe out the spiritual consciousness in the dagger? His soul can't be stronger than mine. Xia Jiulong roared indignantly. His body trembled and he nearly collapsed. Xia Jiulong's spiritual consciousness was in a daze. He endured his injuries and adjusted himself for a moment. After changing his clothes, he quickly entered the holy city and took advantage of the chaos to enter the Sword Dao sect again. Xian Xiu quickly brought him back to the courtyard where he lived alone. When he saw Xia Jiulong's pale face and multiple injuries, he was immediately alarmed. "Your Highness, how did you suffer such serious injuries?" "That damned Fanine." Cough, cough. Wrap the string around his wrist. Otherwise, I would have already killed Yi Qinghan. Now, not only did I fail to kill him, but I was also kicked by him. The dagger was also entangled by the string and became his spoils of war. I didn't have time to withdraw my spiritual consciousness and it was actually forcefully wiped out by Supremacy Sword, Xia Jiulong said with a pale face as he lay on the chair. The dagger won't expose your identity, right? Xian Xiu asked in alarm. Xia Jiulong shook his head and waved his hand. No, go prepare a bucket of hot water for me. Get some soul-related medicinal herbs and pills. I need to recuperate. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was also in extreme pain. If it weren't for the string, he would have died without a doubt. Only now did he understand how big the gap between him and Xia Jiulong was. What a powerful Xia Jiulong. As expected of the #1 expert of the younger generation. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself as he lay on the ground and leaned against a rock. Supremacy Sword said apologetically, Sect Master Yi, I'm truly sorry. Someone actually destroyed the atmosphere of the ceremony right under my nose and even injured you. Stabilize your qi and blood. I'll help you wipe away the destructive aura on your wounds. Yi Qinghan didn't stand on ceremony. He allowed Supremacy Sword to wipe away the destructive aura and profound mysteries on his wounds. Pure sword wounds healed much faster. 4 hours later, Yi Qinghan's complexion looked much better. When he opened his eyes, he discovered that it was already dawn. Supremacy Sword, Fan Yin, and Gu Qingyu were all standing guard around him. Sect Master Yi, do you know who secretly attacked and destroyed the harmony of the ceremony? If you tell me, I'll definitely give you justice. Supremacy Sword said coldly. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes and looked at Fan Yin. However, he discovered that she was constantly shaking her head, indicating that he shouldn't speak carelessly. After all, this matter involved Xia Jiulong. There was absolutely no benefit in accusing him without any evidence. Senior, I also don't know who did it. However, he didn't gain anything from it. I won't pursue this matter any further. Let him be, Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Chapter 2009. Yi Qinghan refused to reveal the identity of the assailant, so Sword Lord had to give up. In fact, he didn't want to continue investigating. Since the assailant dared to attack Yi Qinghan at this time and was so powerful, his identity was already on the verge of being revealed. Continuing to investigate would only make the ceremony more embarrassing. After Sword Lord left, Yi Qinghan went into seclusion to adjust his breath. For half a year, the world was peaceful, and the murderous aura was washed away by joy. Half a year later, the streets were empty. The huge holy city, and even hundreds of miles outside the holy city, was occupied by powerhouses. Countless masters of the outside world gathered, and all forces had arrived. The Sword Dao sect began to arrange. Several mountains outside the city were raised, a large plain was emptied, and 3,600 chairs were placed. Those who had seats were all highly respected figures of the outside world. The rest had to stand and watch the might of the sage from afar. More than 30 eternal sovereigns, except for the sacred lord of the Central Earth Holy Empire, the sect master of the sky-reaching cult and the sacred lord of the Oshi Holy Land, as well as the demon sect master who had disappeared for countless years, all the eternal sovereigns in the world had appeared. This group of eternal saints sat at the front, surrounding Chess Venerable with a solemn and dignified face. Eternal saints were rarely seen in a million years, and now they had seen so many of them at once. Almost all the eternal sovereigns in the world had gathered. This was definitely a grand occasion. The Sword Dao Great Eternal Sovereigns smiled from ear to ear. The Sword Dao Holy City was shrouded in an awe-inspiring aura. Auspicious signs appeared, and the sky was clear with white clouds. Patriarchs of the 100 great clans, please come forward to meet the eternal saints. Congratulations to Chess Sage for breaking through to the eternal realm. May the eternal saints of the world live forever and have boundless longevity. Whoosh! The 100 great clans' patriarchs seemed to have lined up long ago. At this moment, they stepped forward with honor on their faces. They came to the front, knelt on one knee, and said respectfully, "The 100 great clans and trillions of living beings in their territories greet the eternal saints. Congratulations to Chess Sage for entering the Tao with chess and breaking through to the eternal realm. Well, get up. Everyone, don't be restrained. Today is a day of celebration, no trifles." The Sword Tao Great Eternal Sovereign got up and raised his hand. The 100 great clans' strongest masters couldn't control their bodies and stood up involuntarily. The wealth of the 100 great clans was comparable to that of a nation, but without an eternal being, their status was ultimately inferior to a sacred land. When they saw an eternal being, they had to kneel on one knee and greet them. "Sect masters of the 3,000-strong sects, please come forward to meet the eternal saint. Congratulations to the chess saint for breaking through to the eternal realm." Whoosh! The patriarchs of the 3,000 sects could be said to be the overlords of their respective territories. Even now, when they met the saint lords of the various saint lands, they still had to kneel down in front of them. They were like the imperial court, not daring to slack off in the slightest. 3,000 powerful sects and trillions of living beings pay their respects to the eternal saint. Congratulations to the chess saint for entering the Tao with chess and breaking through the eternal realm. May all the saints in the world have eternal life and have boundless longevity. At this moment, the chess venerate stood up with a gentle look on his face. With a wave of his hand, he mobilized the power of the earth and lifted everyone up. His deep voice reverberated through the clouds. "Thank you for coming, everyone. Please stand up. There's no need to be so restrained." "Thank you, Sage." The sect masters of the 3,000-strong sects were all excited. For many of them, this was their first time seeing an eternal sovereign. How could they not be excited to see so many of them? "Take a seat," the chess sovereign said plainly. The patriarchs of the 100 major clans and the 3,000-strong sects took their seats, occupying 3,100 seats at once. In other words, with so many experts in the world, only 500 seats were up for grabs. Whoever could sit down today would definitely be famous, and the world would know in an instant. At this moment, Sword Venerate looked around and said in a deep voice, "I invite all the young legendary experts of the same level to come and meet the sage. Let's see the glory of breaking through the eternal realm and be tainted by the sage's opportunity." Legendary experts were really rare. Even if they were divided into 3, 6, and 9 grades, there were only a few 9th-grade true disciples. There were even fewer of them than eternal sovereigns. The first to stand up was naturally Xia Jiulong. Xia Jiulong was dressed in a dragon robe and had an imposing appearance. He was naturally the strongest man of the younger generation, an existence that could make all the beauties in the world fall in love with him. At this moment, he had a dignified look on his face. He represented the Saint Empire's Saint Lord personally. Junior Xia Jiulong represents the Patriarch to congratulate the chess saint for entering the Tao with chess and achieving eternal realm. The Patriarch ordered this junior to send a set of purple gold sacred chess to congratulate the sage. He hopes that the sage can take another step forward and be on par with the heavens. Xia Jiulong did not kneel. Instead, he bowed and presented a brocade box with both hands. It was sealed by the eternal power and could not be opened unless one was an eternal sovereign. Everyone in the world was shocked. They did not expect the Saint Empire's Saint Lord to be so generous. He actually gave an eternal sacred artifact as a gift. The purple gold sacred chess was named with the word saint, which was enough to indicate its identity. At this moment, even the other eternal sovereigns' faces changed. They did not expect the Saint Empire's Saint Lord to be so generous. How was this a big gift? This was simply a grand gift. Chess Venerate Saint's face was filled with joy. He did not care if it was a sacred artifact or not. He only cared that this chess piece was something he liked. Ha ha ha. Lord Saint Lord is too polite. 9 Dragons Crown Prince, thank him for me. I accept his good intentions. When I have time in the future, I will personally visit Lord Saint Lord and ask him for advice. Chess Venerate Saint waved his hand and took away the brocade box in Xia Jiulong's hand. Xia Jiulong's face was filled with joy and excitement. He knelt on one knee and said, "Then I will first welcome the sage. My patriarch will definitely be very happy." "Ha ha ha, Crown Prince is too polite. It is my honor to be able to meet the Saint Empire's Saint Lord." Chess Venerate Saint said truthfully. This sentence was not false. The Saint Empire's Saint Lord was not someone anyone could meet. Even if an eternal saint came personally, they might not be able to meet him. More than one person had been rejected. "My patriarch asked me to pass a message. As long as the chess saint wants to meet him, he can go to the Saint Empire at any time. When the time comes, he will welcome you with open arms." Xia Jiulong said seriously. This sentence was enough to give Chess Venerate Saint face. Naturally, it was not given by Xia Jiulong, but by the Saint Empire's Saint Lord. No one in the world could make the Saint Empire's Saint Lord say such words, but Chess Venerate Saint did it. He had just broken through to the Saint realm. The other Saint Lords' faces changed slightly, but they did not say anything. They pretended not to hear and treated it as a courtesy. "Nine Dragons Crown Prince, sit down." Chess Venerate Saint said with a smile. "Thank you, sage, for giving me a seat." Xia Jiulong bowed and retreated. Sitting below more than 30 Saint Lords, he could be considered the number one person below the saints. His status was higher than the patriarchs of the rich and powerful sections. Following closely behind was Fan Yin. She was dressed very conservatively and formally today. She no longer had the sloppy aura from before. She was like a peerless fairy, so well behaved that Yi Qinghan felt a little uncomfortable just looking at her from afar. The Sky-Reaching Cult's Fan Yin is here to congratulate the chess saint on breaking through to the eternal realm. I specially offer you a set of immortal materials. I hope the chess saint can use it. Fan Yin's voice was like the sound of nature. It was extremely penetrating, causing the eyes of all the young men in the world to shine. Immediately, Fan Yin handed over a storage ring with both hands. It was definitely a high-grade storage ring. Even the patriarchs of powerful sects could not buy a storage ring like this. It was something only an eternal saint could use. The gifts of the two old monsters were shocking. Not to mention the immortal materials of the Sky-Reaching Cult, just this storage ring alone was priceless. Chapter 2010. Immortal materials were actually materials for eternal sacred weapons. They were extremely scarce in the world, and even eternal sovereigns had to search for them for a long time before they could gather enough to forge their desired weapon. Compared to the prime of Tongtian and Holy Empire's Holy Lord, most of the eternal sovereigns were juniors. However, they had never received such preferential treatment. Back then, when they had broken through, they had only sent people to congratulate them and give them some ordinary materials or holy herbs. They had never received any immortal materials. There was no harm without comparison. Chess Saint had just advanced, and the Holy Empire's Holy Emperor had sent the Crown Prince to deliver a sacred weapon. The Prime of Tongtian had also sent immortal materials. Who wouldn't be jealous? The Sword Dao Grand Eternal Sage had a strange expression on his face. However, he was naturally happy that the other party had sent immortal materials, even if they did not belong to him. Chess Saint stood up and helped Fan Yin up. He laughed heartily and said, "Thank you so much, Prime of Tongtian. How can I accept this?" Fan Yin said respectfully, "The chess saint has cultivated for countless years, and no one in the world knows about it. Now that he has achieved the Tao, thousands of heroes will pay homage to him. This is something that I can learn from. My family has told me that the chess saint's demeanor is something that the world can learn from. Therefore, I have sent you immortal materials and my master's most sincere blessings. Thank you for your praise, great sage. I dare not accept it." Fairy Fan Yin, please take a seat. Chess Saint took the storage ring and gestured. Fan Yin sat on the right side of Chess Saint. She was also below the sage and sat opposite Xia Jiulong. Xia Jiulong and Fan Yin looked at each other, and a glint flashed in their eyes. However, they were very polite on the surface, and there was no trace of hostility in them. In the distance, a few elders from the Oshi sacred ground found your saint and whispered in his ear, "The Supreme Holy Emperor has asked us to give you a congratulatory gift. This jade bottle contains the holy immortal water. It is the best holy item for making immortal medicines. Our Oshi sacred ground only produces 2 taels every 10,000 years. This is one caddy." Yar's saint's expression changed slightly. This was the accumulation of the Oshi Holy Land for 50,000 years. He did not expect the Holy Emperor to be so generous. Yar's saint took the jade bottle and walked past the crowd. She knelt down on one knee and raised both hands to hold the jade bottle. She respectfully said, "Oshi Holy Land Emperor Saintus, Yar Saint, is under the orders of my ancestors to congratulate the chess sage for breaking through the eternal realm and comprehending the supreme Tao. I hereby present the Oshi Holy Land's holy immortal water. This is the heritage of my holy land, and it can only be produced once every 10,000 years. Not only can it be used to create immortal pills, but it can also prolong one's life and brew immortal wine." Hissed that everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Holy immortal water, to an eternal sovereign, was even more precious than immortal materials. It could almost bring the dead back to life. Many eternal sovereigns felt uncomfortable. Which eternal sovereign in the world could receive such congratulations when they advanced? The 3 great sages of the older generation had sent their closest relatives to deliver the most precious treasures. This was absolutely unprecedented. The chess saint personally came down from the high platform and took the jade bottle with both hands. He personally helped your saint up and said with a smile, "Thank you, Holy Emperor, for giving me such honor. I am very grateful. Fairy your saint, please take a seat." Yar saint bowed to the other eternal sovereigns with Eastern etiquette and then sat beside Fan Yin. After that, the true teachings of the other sacred grounds came forward and knelt down to pay their respects to Chess sovereign saint and their masters. However, since their masters were present, they simply knelt down and paid their respects. Naturally, their gifts were presented by their masters themselves. Gong Wuxia and the Thousand-Hand Buddha were among the crowd of true disciples. They did not sit on the high platform but sat in the second row behind the patriarchs of the 100 great clans. Their positions were absolutely revered. Immediately after, the Nightwalker came out from the crowd and knelt on the high platform with the most respectful etiquette. It was surprising. This etiquette was usually used when a child returned to his hometown in glory and paid respects to a loving father, mother, or the most respected elders. What's the relationship between the Nightwalker and the chess sage? At this moment, even the other eternal sovereigns were curious, let alone the people of the world. Sigh, the chess sage sighed and got up to help the Nightwalker up. He said faintly, "This old man can't bear such etiquette. Get up. This junior doesn't have any precious immortal ingredients or immortal herbs to congratulate the sage. I can only use this etiquette to express my respect and gratitude to you. I hope the sage can take another step forward and become a flying immortal." The Nightwalker bowed again and said. The chess sage shook his head and said in a kind and deep voice, "Let's not talk about such illusory things. Sit down. This old man is very happy that you can come. Go to the seat beside this old man and sit down." There was a seat to the right of the chess sage. Although it was a little short, it was empty. Everyone thought it was an eternal sovereign seat. They did not expect the chess sage to leave it for the Nightwalker. After the Nightwalker bowed to the other saints, he quickly came to the chair beside the chess sage and sat down. All the legendary experts had come. There were also some who had never been seen or appeared before, but they were indeed at the legendary level. There were even 2 people whose cultivation levels were close to Xia Jiulong's. They were definitely not inferior to Fan Yin's. They were not famous, and some eternal sovereigns had never seen or even heard of them. Their attitude towards the chess sage was unusually respectful. Everyone waited quietly for the following etiquette, but sword supremacy and the chess sage did not announce the next person to meet the chess sage. Instead, they stared at Yi Qinghan because Yi Qinghan's strength was indeed at the legendary level. Yi Qinghan scratched his head. He did not want to run over to meet the chess sage in a high-profile manner, but when he saw that the chess sage's eyes were fixed on him, he could only step forward and greet the chess sage with half the etiquette of a master. He knelt on one knee and said, "Yi Qinghan from the crazy sect greets the chess sage. I don't have any immortal materials or treasures, but I sincerely wish you a long life and that your chess skills will improve. You can use the heavens as your board and the stars as your chess pieces to awe the world." Many people did not know that Yi Qinghan was at the legendary stage. There was a commotion below the stage. Even the leaders of the powerful sects and wealthy families frowned. This was because once Yi Qinghan was at the legendary stage, his seat would definitely be in front. He would benefit much more than the older generation. Forget it. It's good that you're here. Take a seat yourself, the chess sage said with a faint smile. Choose a seat himself. Everyone was shocked. What kind of rule was this? On what basis? Up until now, apart from the Nightwalker's special position, everyone else had been given a seat. How could they choose a seat themselves? It was obvious from the Nightwalker's etiquette that his relationship with the chess sage was not ordinary. What was going on with Yi Qinghan, who had suddenly appeared? Whoosh! The eyes of all the heroes in the world stared at Yi Qinghan, causing him to feel a chill down his spine. At that moment, the corners of Xia Jiulong's mouth curled up into a sneer. He suddenly stood up and said in all seriousness, "Chess sage, I would like to present you with a gift." The chess sage was stunned as he asked, "What gift?" Xia Jiulong looked at Yi Qinghan, making Yi Qinghan's hair stand on end. He suddenly had an ominous feeling. Chapter 2011. When Xia Jiulong looked at Yi Qinghan, many people were at a loss. Only Yi Qinghan had goosebumps as he knew that Xia Jiulong was up to no good. Indeed, Xia Jiulong smiled, cupped his fists, and bowed. This matter shouldn't be said by little Huang. From the looks of it, the relationship between the saint and sect master Yi should be very good. If I were to say it, it might hurt the saint's feelings. Actually, the saint is obsessed with chess and loves chess boards and chess pieces. Is there a better chess board in this world than the star chessboard? This chessboard has disappeared for countless years and now it has reappeared in the world. Furthermore, it is in the hands of Sect Master Yi. From Sect Master Yi's expression, it seems like you are not willing to take it out to show respect to the chess saint. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and almost exploded. He clenched his fists and wanted to beat Xia Jiulong's smiling face into a pig's head. Who in the world didn't know about the star chessboard? That was the weapon of the Zenith Heaven Saint. Back in the day, the Zenith Heaven Saint was an existence that could fight with the Saint Empire's saint. The power of the star chessboard was known to all saints. It was a chessboard that gathered all the stars in the world. Even the chess saint, with his state of mind, wanted to obtain it. Fuck your mother. How dare you trick me? Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and growled. At this moment, he didn't need to lift his head to know that all the overlords in the world were staring at him. Even the chess saint was looking at him. The Son of War was the clearest that the star chessboard could be in the hands of that little girl. Xia Jiulong wasn't spouting nonsense. However, now that Xia Jiulong had said it, no matter how good the chess saint's temper was, he would be disgusted by Yi Qinghan. However, the chess saint had a calm expression. He smiled and said, "Little Yi, when you say it, if it is really in your hands, I would like to comprehend it. I will definitely not take your chessboard." Yi Qinghan was hesitating. If he admitted it, it would be equivalent to exposing Xue Lin's identity. However, if he did not admit it, there would definitely be animosity between him and chess supremacy. After a long time, Yi Qinghan bowed and replied, "Truth be told, this junior has indeed seen the star chessboard, but that plaything isn't mine. I can't offer it to Buddha with borrowed flowers. After all, I care about my reputation. How can I let someone else use an eternal sacred artifact to curry favor with someone else? That would be too shameless. Of course, I'm not saying that the Nine Dragons Crown Prince is shameless. Everyone, please don't misunderstand. The Nine Dragons Crown Prince cares about his reputation the most." Xia Jiulong's face turned red as he glared at Yi Qinghan. He almost couldn't hold it in. Yi Qinghan looked at Xia Jiulong's angry face and sneered inwardly. They were just hurting each other. He then said, but looking at the Crown Prince's expression, he must want to borrow his ancestor's flower to offer to Buddha. I overestimated the Crown Prince's pride. So, I'll tell you my gift now. Although the star chessboard isn't mine, if the Venerable wants to comprehend it, this junior is confident that I can lend it to Saint to comprehend it for a few years. This junior will definitely not do such a thing. Fan Yin couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. The scene became even more awkward. Everyone looked at each other. Even the eternal sovereigns looked embarrassed. They were really anxious for Xia Jiulong. This slap in the face was too heavy. The anger on the faces of the eternal sovereigns of the holy nation's 9 prefectures was self-evident. They clenched their fists and glared coldly at Yi Qinghan. Their killing intent rose. Obviously, their young master had been humiliated. It would be strange if they could hold it in. However, this was not the right place to act out. The blessed Buddha Holy Lord and the Lord of Hell, who had interacted with Yi Qinghan before, looked at Yi Qinghan indifferently. Their eyes flashed with a strange light. The blessed Buddha Holy Lord had a fat head and big ears. He was one size bigger than an ordinary person. He weighed about 300 to 500 jin. He looked like he couldn't even move. His whole body was emitting Buddhist light. He had a smile on his face, which made people feel comfortable looking at him. However, the more Yi Qinghan looked at him, the more disgusted he became. The Lord of Hell was a little cold and thin. His face was old, and there was a haze in his eyes. His gaze was terrifying, and no one dared to look directly at him. The holy lords of the other holy lands had never seen Yi Qinghan before. Now, their mouths were wide open in shock. They didn't expect Yi Qinghan to fight with the crown prince of the number 1 faction in public. Moreover, he didn't give any face. This was a slap in the face. Xia Jiulong was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He had only brought the purple gold sacred chest this time. He really didn't have any other supreme treasures, so he couldn't find a reason to refute Yi Qinghan's mockery. Fan Yin covered her stomach with one hand and her mouth with the other. She looked like she was laughing secretly. In fact, it was exaggerated. Everyone saw it clearly. The chess saint obviously didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so sharp and make the atmosphere so awkward. He hurriedly stood up and said, "The 9 Dragons Crown Prince represents the holy lords of the Holy Empire. Naturally, he doesn't need to prepare his own gifts. The violet gold sacred chess is already a supreme gift. Little Yi Qinghan, don't mess around." Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a devilish smile. "My apologies, I've misunderstood the Crown Prince. I'm truly envious of the Crown Prince. You have such a good ancestor and you can borrow flowers to present to the Buddha. Commoners like us can only rely on ourselves. Even if we don't have any treasures, we still have to put on a show. Even if you don't want to, you can't fake it." Xia Jiulong took a deep breath. After all, he was the number 1 existence in the world. He quickly reacted and said with a smile, "Who said that I didn't prepare a gift? I'm just a junior. No matter how good the immortal medicine or immortal material is, it won't be able to catch the sage's eye. Therefore, I'm prepared to do it personally. I'm going to congratulate the sage on breaking through the eternal realm. I'm just trying to get a smile from the sage. The chess saint wanted to end the fight between the two quickly, but the blessed Buddha sacred master took the opportunity to say, "Oh, I'm curious to see what Jiulong has prepared to make us smile." Xia Jiulong smiled confidently. He swung his dragon robe and his aura sword. He looked down at everyone and scanned the surroundings. He said proudly, "I'm the number 2 in the younger generation, but I don't dare to say that I'm number 1. I'm representing the Holy Empire. Today, I'm willing to make a fool of myself in front of the sages and let the sages smile. However, the true disciples of the other holy lands are of high status and power. If they were to embarrass themselves with me, it would be detrimental to the reputation of the true disciples. Although sect leader Yi is the leader of a sect, he's still not a disciple of a sage. I wonder if you can put down your pride and fight with me to liven things up for the sages." If Xia Jiulong's words were said by someone else, it would definitely be very arrogant. However, when it came from his mouth, it was true. He was going to make a fool of himself just to get a smile from the sage. Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong were clearly trying to sabotage each other and hurt each other. However, who in the world didn't want to see the number 1 expert of the younger generation in action? They all cheered and pushed the atmosphere to the peak. Even if the chess saint wanted to stop them, it was too late. Chapter 2012. Before Chess Venerable Saint and the Eternal Sword Dao Sage could stop them, the King of Hell and the Blessed Buddha Sacred Master took the initiative to ask to watch this special show. Xia Jiulong had made it so clear that he had tricked Yi Qinghan again. The two of them tore into each other in front of everyone, shedding all pretenses of cordiality and making their discord public. Yi Qinghan was already full of anger. Some time ago, he had almost been killed by Xia Jiulong. Now, Xia Jiulong had embarrassed him in front of everyone. He did not know if the chess saint would blame him or not, but now, Xia Jiulong wanted to humiliate him in front of everyone. Since the Crown Prince is willing to put down his pride for a smile from the saints, why should I be afraid? Since the Crown Prince wants to fight, I'll play along. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. This time, even the legendary experts were stunned. Who else among the younger generation could fight with Xia Jiulong other than Fan Yin? Yi Qinghan had appeared out of nowhere. He did not have a saint behind him or a foundation. How could he fight against Xia Jiulong? Fan Yin was also a little anxious. He quickly signaled Yi Qinghan to not act on impulse. However, at this point, no one could stop them. Chess Venerable Saint wanted to stop them, but the King of Hell said in advance, "It's understandable that young people want to play. It's also a good opportunity to let the world see the strength of the young disciples of the sacred ground." The 9 prefecture masters naturally wanted Xia Jiulong to teach Yi Qinghan a lesson, so they all requested to watch the battle. Chess Venerable Saint had no choice but to agree to the battle. However, he said, "Today is a joyous day. The two of you are not allowed to use weapons." With the saint's permission, Xia Jiulong's eyes shone brightly. This was the best time to kill Yi Qinghan. As the saying goes, fists and feet have no eyes. Even if he really killed Yi Qinghan would only say that the difference in strength between the two of them was too great and that Yi Qinghan was too weak. He would not say that he was bullying others. Yi Qinghan was also angry. He had almost died because of Xia Jiulong's plot some time ago, and he had been tricked again today. He did not know if the chess saint was angry. Now that Xia Jiulong had taken the initiative to challenge him, how could he show his face if he did not fight? "Don't go overboard." Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong snorted and used rhetorical questions. Clearly, they did not want to stop there. Outside the holy city, there was an empty space of 300 meters. It was originally meant for the common people to have an audience with the saints. Now, everyone had retreated. All eyes were on the two young experts. Whoosh! The two of them stepped into the center of the arena. Chess Supreme drew a circle on the ground and formed a prison. The area of 300 square meters was neither too big nor too small. Divine radiance rose from the ground in all directions, and the ground actually formed the shape of a chessboard. Even if Xia Jiulong and Yi Qinghan were to attack, they wouldn't be able to break this piece of land. Amitba. Today, I will be the referee. If one side admits defeat, the performance will end. Everyone is here to liven things up for the chess saint. It's best not to hurt the harmony. The fat blessed Buddha Holy Lord clasped his hands together. His voice was majestic, and it echoed across the sky. He seemed to be hoping that the two would not hurt each other. However, Xia Jiulong and Yi Qinghan were both furious. Who would admit defeat? He obviously wanted to borrow Xia Jiulong's hand to destroy Yi Qinghan. The old fox was indeed an old fox. Yi Qinghan looked at the blessed Buddha Holy Lord indifferently. It was impossible to expect him to admit defeat today. With just his physical body and no weapons, what could Xia Jiulong do? Without weapons, it would be good if Xia Jiulong could unleash 40% of his strength. Lord Yi, please enlighten me. Xia Jiulong clasped his fists and said. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan crossed his legs and raised his hands from the ground. Then, he crossed them and spread them out, forming the Taiji opening stance. Smoke and dust rose from the ground. Crown Prince, please enlighten me. Yi Qinghan's aura was natural. Standing on the ground, he seemed to have the power to reach the heavens. Borrowing the power of the earth and sky, his golden body swam around. His voice was loud like a bell, and vast and mighty. He was definitely in the legendary level, and had already reached the 6th level. However, everyone could only see his cultivation level, and not that his golden body was already in the immortal level. Taiji Immortal Code 10 Character Opening Stance. He's the disciple of the omnipotent sage. The eternal sage of the way of the sword and the eternal sage were shocked. They straightened their posture and turned to look at Fan Yin. Fan Yin coughed and shook his head. He's not my master's disciple. I saw that his talent was not bad, so I taught him the 10-character incantation and Shadowless Cloud. However, this guy did not disgrace me. Although he can't surpass his master, he can still take 300 to 500 moves from the Crown Prince. Fan Yin's voice wasn't soft, and it spread out in all directions. Xia Jiulong's face sank, and he was unable to vent his anger for a long time. If he won this battle, the world would say that he was bullying a junior. After all, he was of the same generation as Fan Yin, and Yi Qinghan was only Fan Yin's in-name disciple. He wasn't even a true disciple, so he was a generation younger. If he lost, he would lose all face. Fan Yin could see that Xia Jiulong was unhappy. How could he let go of such a good opportunity? He took advantage of the situation and said, Little Yi, since the Crown Prince wants to teach you a few moves, use the 10-character incantation Shadowless Cloud that you just learned. Let him teach you. Be careful. Don't hurt the precious body of the Crown Prince. Otherwise, I can't protect you. Hiss. Xia Jiulong took a deep breath and almost couldn't breathe. He clenched his iron fist, and his breath became unstable. His eyes were burning with anger. Fan Yin, you're clearly saying that I bullied your disciple. Today, I'll have to trouble you to come out personally. You master and disciple together. If you can win against this emperor, I'll retreat. Xia Jiulong said coldly, moreover, don't try to confuse others. Others don't know, but I know that Sect Master Yi has always called you senior sister. You two are of the same generation. How did he become your disciple? If you're afraid of losing, then don't come out. It's best if you hide in a woman's embrace. Don't come out and make a fool of yourself. The last sentence was obviously directed at Yi Qinghan. Wen Su, Daoist Jiu Ji, and Reverend Wanhong, who were sitting not far away, looked at each other and reminded, "Little junior sister, don't play with fire. If you fall out with the crown prince in this kind of situation, it will affect the relationship between the Holy Empire and the sky-reaching church." Everyone felt the smell of gunpowder. The two holy lands had always had a good relationship, but now there was a smell of gunpowder. This made some holy lands happy, but others worried. Yi Qinghan suddenly dispersed the starting gesture of the 10-word chant and said indifferently, "I've learned a lot in my life, and I don't have anything good to show. However, I don't want to lose face for senior sister Fan Yin. I don't think I can borrow the power of the crown prince. Therefore, I'll use all I've learned in my life to fight with the crown prince. Whether I win or lose, it's all to congratulate the saint." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's aura fluctuated, and his battle intent soared. Blue demon fire covered his body, and the surrounding temperature suddenly rose. The air was filled with a burnt smell. Boom! Yi Qinghan's veins bulged, and his absolute saint body erupted. His saint blood boiled, and the untraceable cloud under his feet suddenly disappeared. Then, his fist smashed through the void and smashed toward Xia Jiulong like a meteor. When Xia Jiulong saw Yi Qinghan's attack, he didn't even bother to dodge. He only wanted to defeat Yi Qinghan and crush his Tao heart. He waved his hand and controlled the stars. The sun, moon, and stars appeared at the same time, bathing him in radiance. His entire body bloomed with light, as if the power of the world and the stars in the sky were mobilized by him. Whoosh! He lightly slapped out a palm, but it was earth-shattering. His aura soared into the sky, and the divine power of the void condensed into a 5-finger seal. It crushed mountains and rivers, and grabbed toward Yi Qinghan. Open! Yi Qinghan twisted his waist, and the power rose from the ground. The mountains outside the city shook. The power of the absolute saint golden body was enough to shake the sun and moon. The power of his fist was domineering. Boom! A fist and a palm collided. Flames soared into the sky, and waves of air swept out. Although his realm was not as high as the upper level, this power was not something an ordinary legendary level expert could guarantee. Chapter 2013. Boom! One punch seemed to be able to smash through mountains and rivers, while the other palm seemed to be able to crush the heavens and cause the earth to tremble. However, the magnitude was so small that it was almost negligible. After all, the chess saint had already formed a prison. However, the aura was still terrifying, and the visual impact made the hair of those standing far away stand on end. Bam bam bam. Both of them retreated after exchanging blows. Yes, both of them retreated. Xia Jiulong's 5-finger imprint was actually smashed through by Yi Qinghan. It smashed into the palm of his main body and received a majestic impact, causing him to retreat more than 10 steps. Bam! Yi Qinghan lost control of his body and retreated more than 30 steps. His strength was still slightly inferior, and such a result shocked the world. It was unbelievable, but he was not satisfied. Xia Jiulong could not use weapons now, and his combat strength had been suppressed to 40 to 50%. Yi Qinghan's advantage was his physical body. He played to his strengths and avoided his weaknesses, yet he still could not defeat Xia Jiulong. Naturally, he felt embarrassed. Roar! Yi Qinghan clenched his fists. His aura could swallow mountains and rivers, and the momentum of 100 miles was drawn in. He was like a giant that could hold up the heavens. His legs slightly bent as he gathered more strength and punched out again. Bam! Yi Qinghan stomped on the ground and shot out like an arrow. Even though his shadowless cloud had reached the small success stage, his speed was still extraordinary and could not be underestimated. Ordinary people would not be able to use a range of 300 meters, but he and Xia Jiulong were like dragons. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Bam. The two of them flew through the air. Their legs and hands were their strongest weapons. They rushed into the void, but they could not break through the 300 square meter range. It was as if this prison was indomitable and could not be broken. The two of them went up and down, striking with their elbows, fists, and knees. They collided again and again in a wild and domineering manner. Blood splattered everywhere, and everyone was stunned. Damn, where did this savage Yi Qinghan come from? He actually used his physical body to block the Crown Prince's peak combat strength. Too barbaric. It was too fucking awesome. This power, every time it collided, it was at the peak of power, but I don't know who was injured. Outside the arena, those who had not seen much of the world, exclaimed in amazement and disgust animatedly. Their chi and blood surged, and their faces turned red. They wished they were Yi Qinghan. Even if they lost to Xia Jiulong, it would still be a supreme glory. Just this battle alone would be enough to shock the world and set the world in stone. However, the people outside the arena were not the only ones who were shocked. The family heads of the powerful sects and legendary experts were dumbfounded. They knew Xia Jiulong's strength the best. In terms of combat strength among the younger generation, only Fan Yin was slightly weaker. Not many other legendary experts could fight against Xia Jiulong. As for the Nightwalker, there were two other young men dressed in simple clothing. Their eyes shone like torches as they stared at the battlefield. Their faces were expressionless as they tapped their fingers on the table. Although the sound was soft, it was obvious that they were trying to figure out how to deal with the situation. They placed themselves in the shoes of Yi Qinghan and imagined how they would attack or defend if they were in Yi Qinghan's shoes. Few people in the world knew the real names of these three people, but Fan Yin knew that other than the Nightwalker, the other two had long hidden their names and did not care about the world. They were in the same group as Xia Jiulong. Back then, Xia Jiulong, these two, and Fan Yin had become the world's 4 heroes and 1 fairy. However, the emperor had been defeated in the end and could never make a comeback. He had been left far behind by the others. The 4 supreme martial artists were all staring at Yi Qinghan. Others could only see Yi Qinghan's strength and outburst, but they couldn't see that he was gradually falling into a disadvantageous position and had more than 1 wound on his body. Boom! Yi Qinghan was like a violent bear. He struck forward with his elbow and knee and collided with Xia Jiulong crazily. With one strike, sparks flew in all directions. The chessboard matrix shone brightly and the lines intertwined like a heavenly net. The visual impact blinded everyone. Those with weaker cultivation could not even open their eyes. Only the top experts could see clearly. Bang! Xia Jiulong's elbow collided with Yi Qinghan. Even with the protection of divine power, he could not withstand the golden body of the absolute saint. His elbow bone, which was the hardest part of his body, was broken. Blood splattered everywhere. The impact sent him flying hundreds of meters away. He crashed into the chessboard matrix enchantment and the matrix shone brightly. Yi Qinghan was in an even worse state. It was as if he had crashed into a divine instrument. He lost control of his body and crashed into the enchantment. His body almost fell apart and fell heavily to the ground. He was in a sorry state. Both sides were injured. Everyone was shocked by Yi Qinghan's violence. When they thought that the two of them were tied, the two of them stood up in an instant. Their faces were gloomy and cold. Ka ka ka. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists. In just 5 minutes, more than half of his divine power had been consumed. He was so tired that he could not even stand properly. However, the battle intent in his eyes was still strong. He had no intention of admitting defeat. Xia Jiulong snorted and shook his golden body. The injuries on his body recovered rapidly. The bloodline of the true dragon was indeed perverse. At this moment, the chess venerable stood up slowly and said with a smile, "Thank you, 9 Dragons Crown Prince and little Yi Qinghan, for personally livening up the fun for me. I have already received your kind intentions. Both of you are dragons and phoenixes among men. Let's consider this a tie. However, Xia Jiulong was unwilling. He quickly recovered his strength and said plainly, Chess Saint, this is just a warm-up. Both of us did not use our true abilities. We are just relying on brute force. We are all cultivators. What we play is mystic arts and techniques. It is rare for me to meet a worthy opponent. Chess Saint looked at Yi Qinghan's golden body bathed in light. His divine power was also recovering rapidly. The holy golden body was almost indestructible. Such injuries were nothing to Yi Qinghan. However, he did not want them to continue fighting. It would not look good if either of them were seriously injured. However, some people were unwilling to let this battle end like this. The 9 prefectures Lord, King of Hell, and Blessed Buddha Saint Master were unwilling to let this battle end like this. Amitabha. Chess Saint, you are the host today. I did not want to embarrass you. However, I am the referee for this battle. We have agreed from the start that the performance will only end when one side concedes defeat. Moreover, these 2 young talents are evenly matched. Why not fulfill their wishes? Blessed Buddha Saint Master said plainly. That's right. Saints should understand the feeling of being evenly matched. It is inevitable that they would want to compete. Both sides were just warming up. Why not let everyone broaden their horizons? King of Hell also suggested. The Eternal Sword Saint could see that several saints wanted to kill Yi Qinghan. It would not be good to offend the saints. Therefore, he signaled with his eyes and shook his head at Chess Saint. Fan Yin was a little anxious. Although Yi Qinghan was strong, his cultivation time was like that of a baby compared to Xia Jiulong's. How could he be a match for him? If this continued, Yi Qinghan would be at a disadvantage sooner or later. 9 Dragons Crown Prince, no matter what, Yi Qinghan is indeed a junior. If he continues to fight with you like this, he will be at a disadvantage. Let's agree on 10 moves. If he gains the upper hand, he will win. What do you think? Fan Yin suggested in a low voice. No problem. 10 moves is enough. Xia Jiulong replied confidently. Yi Qinghan gathered all his aura and gathered his golden body. His divine power was also restored to its peak state. The holy golden body was completely awakened. It was like a heavenly battle weapon. Once again, he used the starting gesture of the 10-word formula. Chapter 2014. Although Yi Qinghan did not say anything, he used his most unyielding attitude to express his thoughts. If he didn't die today, he would definitely make a comeback in the future. Yi Qinghan stared coldly at Xia Jiulong. He raised his eyes and his battle-intent soared. Whoosh! Xia Jiulong looked at Yi Qinghan's eyes and no longer held back. He no longer concealed his murderous intent. He only had 10 moves. If he couldn't kill Yi Qinghan this time, there would be plenty of time in the future. It was hard to tell who would win or lose. His dragon robe fluttered, and his aura swallowed the mountains and rivers. The sun and moon appeared at the same time, and the radiance of trillions of stars shrouded the sky. Astral Arts. Xia Jiulong stepped on the 7 stars, and the chessboard shone brightly. His traces were a little strange. He seemed to be in front, but he had already left. He had achieved teleportation. Xia Jiulong's afterimages were everywhere in the world. He was so fast that it was impossible to determine his position. Yi Qinghan suddenly closed his eyes and danced with Tai Chi. He pulled the airflow and gathered the power of the 8 trigrams. Although he couldn't see Xia Jiulong's trajectory and position, he could sense his location and murderous intent by listening to the airflow. He was strong, but he was strong. The wind brushed the hills, the 10,000 moves followed the heart, the 1,000 changes did not leave the sect. Yi Qinghan danced faster and faster. The airflow in the chessboard formation was completely controlled by him. He could pinpoint Xia Jiulong's position with just a slight change. However, he still couldn't pinpoint Xia Jiulong's exact position. Xia Jiulong drifted with the airflow. His speed and control reached an exaggerated level. He kept getting closer to Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as the two were accumulating their power, Xia Jiulong moved. He turned into a star, and his hand was the sky. He pressed down from above, shattering the airflow of Yi Qinghan's star. He forcefully squeezed, and even divine weapons could be shattered. The power of the sun, moon, and stars could not be shaken. Yi Qinghan's aura stagnated, and his body moved back. He borrowed the power of the earth to resist the power of the stars. His body and the earth became one, and even the chessboard formation seemed to be integrated with him. If one wanted to defeat him, they would have to defeat the chess saint's chessboard formation. Although the chessboard formation only contained 1,000th of the chess saint's profundity, it wasn't something a middle-level expert could break. Boom! Yi Qinghan raised his palms to meet Xia Jiulong's attack. Xia Jiulong's heaven-covering palms struck downwards. They collided with each other forcefully. Shockwaves swept out, and the light of the chess matrix became even more dazzling. Ka ka ka. The sound of bones breaking could be clearly heard. It was especially ear-piercing as it spread into the distance. Yi Qinghan's corporeal body bore the brunt of the power from the stars. His corporeal body sank, and his leg bones cracked. He was forced to kneel down, but fortunately, he was kneeling on one knee. His right leg was still able to withstand the pressure. He swung his palms to the left, using Xia Jiulong's power to throw himself to the edge of the chess matrix. Do you think you can borrow my power just because you want to? If I only have the strength of 1,000 jin, then do you have the strength of 4 tails? Xia Jiulong's disdainful voice reverberated. Then, trillions of stars gathered. The mysteries and secrets of the stars exploded in an instant. His power was enough to shake mountains and rivers. Even the chess matrix shook. Boom! Xia Jiulong's palms struck down like lightning, crushing Yi Qinghan's corporeal body. He couldn't even borrow any power. Compared to Xia Jiulong, Yi Qinghan was too slow, and his strength was too weak. He couldn't even withstand a single blow. This was the strength of a secret technique. The strongest secret technique of time, the astral arts, was not something an ordinary technique could contend with. Yi Qinghan's 10-character mantra was only a part of the Immortal's code, and it was only at the minor completion stage. The difference was too great. Yi Qinghan can't borrow Xia Jiulong's power. If this continues, Yi Qinghan will be crushed to dust by Xia Jiulong's power of the stars. The Nightwalker commented quietly. Fan Yin stood up agitatedly, staring at the chessboard formation. The Blessed Buddha Holy Master, the 9 prefectures' lords, and the King of Hell nodded silently. The difference in strength was obvious now. Yi Qinghan was an arrow at the end of its flight. It was only a matter of time before he lost. Yi Qinghan, surrender. Fan Yin hurriedly reminded him. But Yi Qinghan didn't even have the strength to speak. He was fully focused on resisting Xia Jiulong's power. The 10-character mantra couldn't help him anymore. He could only rely on his corporeal body and divine power. Roar! Yi Qinghan roared. His voice didn't sound like a human's at all. It sounded like a primordial beast with the power of a giant dragon. Boom! Yi Qinghan's corporeal body was pushed to the edge of the chessboard formation by Xia Jiulong. He was being squeezed by the formation and the power of the stars. His corporeal body was twisted, and his veins were bulging. His dragon blood was boiling. He was resisting with all his might. Boom boom boom. Xia Jiulong's power was limitless. He hadn't finished his moves yet, but his power was coming in waves, each wave stronger than the last. Each wave was several times stronger than the last, and it kept stacking up. Yi Qinghan was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He was pressed against the chessboard formation, unable to retreat or advance. He was being squeezed in the center, and it was impossible for him to break through the chessboard formation. If he didn't want to die, he had to force Xia Jiulong to retreat. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He closed his eyes and mobilized his golden body. Every cell exploded. Every giant blood cell was a star with limitless potential. They could erupt with monstrous power, and the golden body shone brightly. Dragon transformation style. Roar, roar. Yi Qinghan suddenly erupted. He transformed into a heavenly dragon and roared. His fangs tore through the shackles, and the impact seemed to break through the chessboard formation. Even the dust outside the formation was blown up. The potential of the giant blood race was unleashed. His strength instantly increased by several times, and he forcefully overturned Xia Jiulong's astral arts. Roar! Yi Qinghan's body rose as a giant phantom appeared behind him. It was 6 meters tall. It was driven by Yi Qinghan's main body as he punched Xia Jiulong. Boom! Xia Jiulong's expression changed abruptly. His attack had been broken, and he was caught off guard. He waved his palm again. 9 moons and stars appeared in his palms, converging into a giant full moon. He pushed his palms out with earth-shattering might. The tremors on the ground intensified, and the shockwaves spread for thousands of miles. Boom! Yi Qinghan's elbows transformed into divine weapons and fiercely attacked Xia Jiulong's palms. They were as fast as lightning, and they separated upon contact. His body rotated, and his long legs were like rainbows piercing through the sun. They swept across 1,000 caddies and smashed down on Xia Jiulong. Whoosh! Xia Jiulong retreated and used stellar transposition. He disappeared from where he was in the blink of an eye. His palms transformed into blades and slashed toward Yi Qinghan's neck. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan grabbed with his bare hands and condensed his qi into a blade. The 7-foot-long blade tore through the stars with unstoppable momentum. His domineering aura soared to the heavens. His blade techniques were grand, and he clashed with Xia Jiulong in the blink of an eye. Boom boom boom. The two of them continuously clashed and retreated. Every time, Yi Qinghan was at a disadvantage. But every time, he was unable to kill Yi Qinghan. It was difficult to even severely injure him. Yi Qinghan was fighting with his life on the line. He pushed his shadowless unfettered cloud footwork to the limit. Every time, he would rush over before Xia Jiulong could finish accumulating power. This prevented Xia Jiulong from displaying his peak strength. In the blink of an eye, 10 moves flashed past. 10 moves have passed. Yi Qinghan, you've lost. Quickly thank 9 Dragons Crown Prince for his guidance. Fan Yin's forehead was covered with beads of sweat. When Xia Jiulong finished his 10 moves, he immediately shouted. Xia Jiulong was filled with anger as he glared at Yi Qinghan. He hadn't even used 30% of his strength. Every time, he was forcefully intercepted by Yi Qinghan. It was a bit like the interception Dao of the interception Dao. Xia Jiulong's heart sank and his body trembled. The 9 Dragons fan appeared in his right hand. This battle was completely unfair to Xia Jiulong. The space was too small. He couldn't display his advantage at all. Instead, he was suppressed by Yi Qinghan. How could he accept this? Yi Qinghan was panting. His holy golden body was riddled with wounds. Xia Jiulong's qi blades had lacerated it more than 10 times. He was bathed in blood, but he was grinning. This battle with Xia Jiulong was much more useful than 3 to 5 years of bitter cultivation. Chapter 2015. In this narrow space, Xia Jiulong's strength was suppressed by more than half and he couldn't use his weapon. It would be difficult for him to kill Yi Qinghan. At this moment, he was burning with anger. The 9 Dragons fan appeared in his hand and he gently waved it. Good. As expected of a young talent, I admire you. However, it is rare for us to meet our match. I hope that seniors will not interfere and let me and Sect Master Yi have a good fight. Disperse the chessboard formation. Weapons may be used, but the limit is 3 moves. If Sect Master Yi can still stand, I will admit defeat in front of the world's overlords. Xia Jiulong said in a deep voice. No. Before Yi Qinghan could refuse, Fan Yin immediately rejected Xia Jiulong's request. If Xia Jiulong didn't have the suppression of the chessboard array and used the 9-dragon fan in his rage, even Fan Yin wouldn't dare say that she could block a sure-kill attack, let alone Yi Qinghan. Junior sister Fan Yin, this battle is between me and Sect Master Yi. Everyone is here to liven things up for the saints. Even if you refuse, it should be Sect Master Yi who admits defeat before refusing. What is your relationship? How can you refuse this battle on behalf of Sect Master Yi? I don't believe that a man like Sect Master Yi is a little man who hides behind a woman. Xia Jiulong's eyes were as dazzling as the stars as he stared at Fan Yin. Every sentence was aimed at the heart. He didn't give Yi Qinghan a chance to refuse. At this time, everyone could see that Xia Jiulong wanted to use this opportunity to kill Yi Qinghan. He was very determined. Otherwise, he wouldn't have declared war on Yi Qinghan on this occasion. Ha ha ha, it's been a long time since I've seen such a good fight. It really reminds me of the battles I had with my fellow Taoists when I was young. At that time, winning or losing wasn't important. What was important was to break through one's bottleneck. Death wasn't even in the eyes. Young people nowadays lack courage. Now, I see hope. The Lord of Hell laughed heartily. It seemed that he recognized Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong's strength and courage. In fact, he was supporting Xia Jiulong. Ba, I believe that 9 Dragons Crown Prince and Schoolmaster Yi are fighting to break through the bottleneck and not to kill each other. We saints should help them achieve their goal. Blessed Buddha Holy Master clasped his palms together and lamented the heavens and pitied the people around him. In reality, he was a cunning schemer. Borrowing someone else's knife to kill someone, and he could even explain it so beautifully. The 9 lords all spoke out in support of this battle. Even if the other holy lords wanted to refuse, they couldn't. After all, the relationship between the Holy Lands was very delicate. Emperor Yi and Wu Sheng'er asked Wu Xinjuan for help. They hoped he would speak up for Yi Qinghan, but Wu Xinjuan shook his head. He didn't say anything in support of the fight. Everyone was looking at Yi Qinghan. Whether this battle could be won or not depended on whether Yi Qinghan could put down his pride. Yi Qinghan leaned against the chessboard's barrier and breathed out a few mouthfuls of turbid air. His golden body was indestructible, and he was a paragon saint. He had already formed a grand circulation. Even after suffering such heavy injuries, he was still able to recover quickly. He wasn't any slower than Yi Qinghan. We can fight, but I don't care about reputation. Crown Prince, you don't need to admit defeat in front of the world. I don't have the confidence to be the strongest of my generation. However, I have only cultivated for less than 60,000 years. Compared to the 9 Dragons Crown Prince, it's just a hair from 9 oxen. If we fight like this, I'll be at a disadvantage. So, if we really fight, I hope Crown Prince can agree to my condition. If I win, let me go to the heaven-sealing prison again. One day is enough. I don't need to bring anyone out of there, I just need to take something that belongs to me. If I can't stand up, I'll probably die. Yi Qinghan asked in a serious tone. Xia Jiulong frowned. He was a bit surprised. What did he leave in the sealed sky prison? Is it worth risking his life for? Yi Qinghan grinned. He was ready to bet his life on that piece of paragon gold. It was enough to refine several eternal sacred weapons. It was worth the gamble. 3 moves would be over in an instant. He didn't want to seriously injure Xia Jiulong, but he was confident that he could protect himself. The Cloud Dragon Manor's Manor Lord was a vigorous middle-aged man. He nodded slightly, indicating Xia Jiulong's choice. Good. Since it belongs to Sect Lord Yi, as long as you win, the sealed sky prison will open for you to take, Xia Jiulong said in a deep voice. Ha ha ha. Crown Prince, you're so straightforward. Yi Qinghan was deliberately stalling for time. The divine power in his body was rapidly recovering. His body had already reached its peak, and it would only take a short time to fully recover. When Xia Jiulong saw that Yi Qinghan had agreed, he gripped the 9-dragon fan in his hand. He thought to himself, this person's speed is not to be underestimated. If I want to kill him, I have to give him no chance to escape. The first 20 moves of the 36 moves of the astral art are probably not very effective against him. To be safe, I'll use the 30th move, Lightless Stars. It will directly destroy thousands of miles and destroy his origin. Even a saint can't save him. The chess venerable looked at Yi Qinghan's flickering eyes and shook his head helplessly. He waved his hand and removed the chessboard formation. Then, he formed a seal and condensed the stars in the sky, covering the horizon. The clouds were condensed into soil, and a boundary appeared in the sky, just like the earth. Even a veteran eternal saint would take a while to achieve this. However, he did it with just a wave of his hand. His strength was obvious. This cloudy soil star boundary is to prevent the two of you from accidentally injuring the creatures within thousands of miles. Just like the earth, it will not affect your combat strength and performance, the chess venerable explained in a deep voice. The boundary was transparent. As long as everyone looked up, they could see the scene above, so it didn't affect their view. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong's figures flashed and appeared above the boundary. The boundary didn't stop them, but if they wanted to come down, they would have to wait for the chess venerable to remove the boundary. The two of them walked in the air as if they were walking on flat ground. They were about 100 meters apart, ready to strike. Whoosh! The 9-dragon fan in Xia Jiulong's hand suddenly flew into the sky. The 9 dragons came out together and formed a formation, trapping Yi Qinghan inside. The 9 dragons looked down on all living beings and occupied all directions, preventing Yi Qinghan from escaping. If he wanted to live, he would have to withstand 3 moves. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and mobilized the giant blood cells in his body. His saint blood burned, and his 9 transformations golden body Tao physique was completed. The holy golden body flowed with holy light, and the wishful bell transformed into a divine protection garment. It flapped in the wind, and the Buddha's light soared into the sky. The blessed Buddha sacred master was shocked. He sat up straight and stared at Yi Qinghan. He cried out, how could the wishful bell be in his hands? The origin of the wishful bell was indeed extraordinary. It even shocked the blessed Buddha sacred master. However, Yi Qinghan had yet to reveal his true strength. The record of Yin Yang turned into a golden armor and protected his internal organs. He waved his hand like a god of war, and a short sword appeared in his hand. He didn't have a suitable weapon, and the bamboo flute's power couldn't be unleashed. It could be used against others, but against Xia Jiulong, it was a joke. Xia Jiulong looked at the short sword and almost fainted. This was the short sword that Yi Qinghan took away half a year ago. It was definitely a top-notch item. Chapter 2016. Xia Jiulong was infuriated. He looked at the dagger in Yi Qinghan's hand, his eyes burning with anger. Yi Qinghan casually waved the dagger and said gloomily, I don't know which piece of trash tried to assassinate me last time, but he actually left this dagger behind. The quality is not bad. I don't have any suitable weapons, so I used this to fight the crown prince. I hope I didn't disgrace the crown prince's status. Ho ho ho. Xia Jiulong's breathing was rapid and unstable. No matter how strong his Dao heart was, it was still unstable. After all, Yi Qinghan's words were too infuriating. You can be arrogant for now and enjoy your mouth. We'll talk again if you can stand up after 3 moves. Xia Jiulong's anger surged. His murderous aura shrouded the sky. The 9 dragons fan imprisoned Yi Qinghan in all directions, making it impossible for him to escape. Whoosh! Xia Jiulong gathered his power. In the clear sky, billions of stars appeared. It was especially dazzling. He held the 9 dragons fan in his hand. A row of tiny spikes appeared at the tail of the fan. This weapon was specially used to kill the soul. It contained a profound mystery. Once hit, the enemy would lose more than half of their vitality. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He did not dare to think too much. When fighting Xia Jiulong, the slightest mistake would mean certain death. Boom! Boom! The sacred blood in Yi Qinghan's body surged like a stampede of 10,000 horses. The dagger in his hand was only the length of 2 chopsticks. Compared to Yi Qinghan's berserk mode, it was too delicate. He couldn't bring out his peak state, let alone unleash his aura. How should I fight this battle? Yi Qinghan's eyes were like lightning. He stared at Xia Jiulong, who was gathering his power. Although there were only 3 moves, and it sounded simple, if they really fought, it could be over in 1 move. Without a foolproof plan, he would be lying here today. I can't let him unleash his peak strength. I have to force him to attack. He can only unleash 50% of his strength. After 3 moves, I might be able to survive. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. He charged at Xia Jiulong as if he did not care about his life. He drew his sword and stabbed forward. He was as fast as lightning. Whoosh! 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 Yi Qinghan's sword drew out 3 sword flowers, forming a triangular shape. The sharp sword qi was filled with ruthlessness and killing intent. It was like flowing clouds and flowing water, ethereal and light, adding a sense of dominance and coldness. This sword contained the solitary sword Dao, the modified version of the Green Lotus sword song. It also contained Yi Qinghan's own comprehension, the essence of the boundless sword Dao in the land of the 9 prefectures, the momentum of the sword not returning, and the violent and domineering nature of the sword not returning. So many powerful sword moves fused together to form a nondescript sword style, making people unable to discern its origin. That one sword strike triggered the homage of 10,000 swords. The divine swords of countless people on the ground trembled involuntarily, as if they wanted to fly into the sky. The eternal sword Dao Saint's eyes were filled with surprise. When Yi Qinghan's sword move had just been released, he had sensed something unusual. He could also feel that Yi Qinghan's sword move had the overbearing saber technique and the momentum of a grand opening and closing. However, his talent in the sword Dao was enough to make him his personal disciple. But why would such a person learn saber techniques instead of the sword Dao? In the blink of an eye, the moment Yi Qinghan released his sword move, Xia Jiulong felt a sense of danger. He did not have time to accumulate power, but he had already gathered 70% of his strength and borrowed the power of countless stars. The explosion was enough to destroy everything within 1,000 miles. Astral art, lightless stars, silent destruction. Xia Jiulong attacked with moves after the 30th move of the astral art. The shock wave and light made people unable to open their eyes. Although they were separated by a barrier, they could still feel the terrifying mystery of destruction. Boom! Xia Jiulong held the 9 dragons fan in his hand and swung it forward. He poured out all his divine power and borrowed power like a flood, covering the place where Yi Qinghan was. Xia Jiulong did not want to give Yi Qinghan a chance. Even if he did not use his full strength, he used at least 80% of his peak strength. His aura was terrifying, making the legendary experts of the major forces shudder. They had a new evaluation of his strength. Whoosh! A shock wave passed in front of Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan did not even have the chance to react. The shock wave passed by him, followed by an irresistible force that broke through his sword aura and crashed into his golden body. Boom! Yi Qinghan's body was thrown into the distance like a kite with a broken string. At this moment, all techniques were illusory. In the face of absolute power, everything was like a rotten ant that could not withstand a single blow. Even Fanin's 10-word incantation could not borrow power. Bang! Yi Qinghan only felt his vision blur. His entire body lost consciousness in an instant. Then, he felt a heart-wrenching pain, including his soul and body. It was so painful that he lost all feeling in his entire body. The powerful holy golden body cracked and was covered in wounds. Holy blood dyed the sky red. Bang! Yi Qinghan did not dare to lie down. Relying on his willpower, he slammed his palm on the barrier. His body bounced up again. The Rui Bell and the Yin-Yang mysterious record produced a violent rebound, causing his golden body to fester and become a bloody mess. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan directly threw out the short sword. It turned into a bolt of lightning, drawing out the origin of lightning. The peak of the firmament was instantly filled with lightning and thunder. Dark clouds covered the sky, obscuring the stars and dimming the sun and moon. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan attacked like a raging bear. His elbows and knees became his strongest divine weapons. His body was slightly bent as he followed behind the short sword and smashed towards Xia Jiulong. Xia Jiulong did not expect Yi Qinghan to resist and even attack first. He sneered and said, "Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." The profound meaning of the astral arts, the great Tao of heaven and earth, manifest in my body. In my name, destroy. Boom! Xia Jiulong's figure moved like a bolt of lightning, traversing thousands of miles and tearing through the shackles. He opened his 9 dragons fan and formed a giant dragon that could devour the heavens. A solitary ray of dark light poured out from Xia Jiulong's mouth like a torrential flood and blasted towards Yi Qinghan. The dagger was actually shattered into dust by the dark light of destruction. Xia Jiulong then charged towards Yi Qinghan. It's over. He's dead for sure. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. Even the eternal saints shook their heads, indicating that the battle was over. Emperor Yi and the others were dumbfounded. They did not expect Xia Jiulong to be so strong. Woo woo woo. Suddenly, a strange flute sound rang through the sky, stirring up the sun, moon, and clouds. The destructive force formed by Xia Jiulong collapsed for no reason. Everyone was shocked. They looked at Yi Qinghan and found that there was a flute in his hand. When he was about to die, he used his soul to play this flute. However, he found that there was a hidden force hidden in the flute. Under the impact of the terrifying airwaves, it directly exploded. It shattered Xia Jiulong's attack. Xia Jiulong was dumbfounded. He did not expect his sure-kill attack to be broken in such a strange way. The second move. There was only one move left. As long as Yi Qinghan withstood it, there was no need to fight this battle. Xia Jiulong's mouth twitched. His murderous intent soared as he roared, "What bullshit demonic technique is this? It's all illusory in front of my astral arts." Boom boom boom. Above the dome, the starlight tore through the darkness. Xia Jiulong was like the brightest star, gathering billions of starlight. The terrifying power made even the top experts of the upper level feel the aura of death. This was already in the category of forbidden techniques. Even if Xia Jiulong used it, he would have to exhaust his life force origin. Chess Venerate Saint wanted to stop him, but the Lord of Hell said, "Life and death are predestined. It's better for us not to interfere. Some things have already been formed. If we forcefully twist it, it will cause the order to collapse. Ches Venerate Saint took a deep breath and finally let go of his hand. Chapter 2017. The Eternal Saints watched from the sidelines. The 9 lords looked around coldly to prevent any saints from intervening. Under the ultimate profundity of the astral arts, all profound secret techniques became illusions. Xia Jiulong's power was monstrous. The light of destruction gathered, and his body was as dazzling as the stars. No one could resist him. The profundity that surpassed everything allowed Xia Jiulong to gather 90% of his power. He quickly rushed to the peak, and then surpassed the limit. Yi Qinghan's pupils contracted. He knew that rushing forward now was no different from courting death. He couldn't resist now. He could only escape. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan raised his hands and then separated them. Using the Taiji Immortal Cannon's power-gathering profundity, he quickly raised his state to the peak. He absorbed the power of trillions of stars and gathered it into his golden body. His limbs and bones were surging with boundless divine power. Boom boom boom. Yi Qinghan's divine power began to flow in a strange path. The Azure Lotus Immortal Steps, seizing the heavens, was slowly being used. Shadowless clouds overlapped with it. A green lotus gathered at his chest, faintly discernible. However, he didn't dare to expose the Azure Lotus Immortal Steps technique. He could only use a portion of his divine power to withdraw the green lotus. Time passed little by little. The overlord stared at the sky. Seeing Xia Jiulong gather his power, they all sighed. Sigh, there's no need to continue fighting. The 9 Dragons' Crown Prince is indeed the #1 expert of the younger generation. The power he gathered now can threaten the lives of 80% of the upper-level experts. Lord Sword sighed softly. It wasn't just the upper-level experts who thought the same as Lord Sword. The Eternal Saints all thought so. However, no one wanted to offend the Central Earth Holy Empire, so they didn't say anything. Fan Yin, Gu Qingyu, Emperor Yi, and the others all widened their eyes. They looked at Yi Qinghan nervously. Although they had been confident in his strength for so many years and had never doubted it, today's opponent was too terrifying. Boom! Xia Jiulong waved his 9 dragons fan, and a majestic power of destruction instantly annihilated everything within a radius of 8,000 miles. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped Yi Qinghan's surroundings. However, this was the moment Yi Qinghan had been waiting for. Just as the ultimate power was about to reach him, he stacked the Green Lotus Immortal Steps and Shadowless Cloud and activated the forbidden technique. He used the impact of Xia Jiulong's power to conceal the fact that he had used the Immortal Steps. In an instant, he broke free from the shackles and tore apart the array set up by the 9 Dragons fan. The 9 Dragons fan did not even have the time to explode. One would become stronger when faced with a strong opponent, but there was a process of becoming stronger. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan did not give it the chance to become stronger. Whoosh! Whoosh! The holy light annihilated everything, and instantly rushed thousands of miles away. Everything in the sky was shattered into nothingness. The space was distorted, and the crack was like a black hole in the galaxy, deep and boundless. Everyone's eyes widened and their jaws dropped. They were stunned by the might that Xia Jiulong had erupted with. Even the Nightwalker and the other 2 clothed experts felt their hairs stand on end. Let alone Yi Qinghan, even they wouldn't be able to withstand such a strike. Boom! 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 The aftermath hit the enchantment set up by the 9 Dragons fan. The enchantment shook and was directly destroyed. The enchantment collapsed. Whoosh! Xia Jiulong waved his hand and summoned the enchantment away. He took away the 9 Dragons fan and stood proudly in the air. His cold eyes scanned the surroundings. He did not believe that Yi Qinghan could survive. Except for the Eternal Saints, everyone was sure that Yi Qinghan was dead. Even his bones were not preserved. However, more than 30 eternal saints looked at each other. Their divine senses were so powerful that Yi Qinghan had left the 9 dragons' great array in an instant. Even Xia Jiulong did not notice it, let alone the others. "I'm sorry, Chess Saint. I didn't mean to kill anyone. I've brought bad luck to you." Xia Jiulong bowed deeply, as if he was apologizing with regret. "Xia Jiulong. You bastard, can you only rely on your cultivation to bully a junior?" Fan Yin roared. Emperor Ye's face was pale. He stood up from his chair in a panic and looked at the enchantment in the sky. It was still covered by the terrifying light of destruction. Everything had been annihilated. There was no sign of Yi Qinghan. Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and Yan Ao's faces were extremely ugly. They never thought that someone could kill a godlike man. So far, he had never said he would lose. Now, he had lost his life. Sighed up the experts of the powerful sects pretended to be sad and pitiful. Sighs could be heard constantly. However, there were also people who were truly sighing for a fallen genius. The little brother and sister standing in the valley of Yi Qinghan's camp looked at each other. There was some sadness in their eyes, especially the little girl. She pouted and said, "Is he dead?" "Sigh, he should be dead. This kind of power is not something a middle-level cultivator can contend with." The little girl's brother sighed and said, "But he died a worthy death. To be so tragic, he can be considered a hero of his generation. It is possible for his name to go down in history in the future." Just as Xia Jiulong and Xian Xiu were rejoicing, the Saint Nation's Yunlong Manor Lord stared at Xia Jiulong. He shook his head and said, "Yi Qinghan is not dead. He escaped." "What? What?" Everyone looked at the Eternal Saint in disbelief. They thought that they were hallucinating. "What? That's impossible!" Xia Jiulong cried out. His expression was very interesting. "What? He's not dead. Little Yi is not dead?" Fan Yin asked in shock. Emperor Yi rushed to Wu Xinjuan and asked anxiously, "Father, he's not dead, right? Where is he?" Whoosh! Chess Venerate Saint waved his hand and removed the enchantment. Xia Jiulong fell to the ground. His face was gloomy and his hostility was self-evident. He is indeed not dead. The moment the 9 dragons' crown prince's power reached him, he tore open the seal and escaped the 9 dragons' fan's enchantment. The 9 dragons' crown prince did not do it on purpose. I believe Sect Master Yi will not take it to heart. Chess Venerate Saint's mighty voice spread out. Xia Jiulong's mouth twitched. He suddenly laughed and said, "Senior Saints, are you joking with me?" The 9 lords shook their heads, indicating that Xia Jiulong should not lose his composure at this critical moment. At this moment, the Blessed Buddha Holy Master put his palms together. Buddhist light shot into the sky, and his bell-like voice rang out. "Amitba, Sect Master Yi is indeed a dragon among men. The secret technique that he used gave me a sense of déjà vu. To be able to tear open the 9 dragons' fan's enchantment in an instant, it seems that there is indeed a supreme great saint behind him." What was a great saint? It meant that one's cultivation level could reach the heavens. There were less than 3 great saints in the world. Xia Jiulong's heart was in turmoil. The hostility in his eyes gradually disappeared. He was sure that the saints would not joke with him. Therefore, Yi Qinghan had really escaped and was not dead. He had lost, completely lost. At this moment, Yi Qinghan came from afar in ragged clothes. He looked like a beggar. His divine armor was shattered, and the record of Yin Yang was broken. Only the Rui bell was still protecting his golden body. "Congratulations on your safe return, Sect Master Yi." Venerable Lord Sword stood up and said. Cough cough, "Many thanks to Senior Venerable Lord Sword. It was pure luck that I was able to survive." The Crown Prince is definitely the strongest of the younger generation. Yi Qinghan coughed dryly. Although he was not dead, he was indeed injured, and not lightly. He now had an accurate assessment of Xia Jiulong's strength. He was definitely not Xia Jiulong's match. Yi Qinghan was covered in dirt and grime, but he had managed to escape with his life, so he was naturally in a good mood. This was especially true when he saw Xia Jiulong's unresigned expression. When he thought about how to fish out the heaven-sealing prison, he couldn't help but grin. Chapter 2018. When Xia Jiulong heard Yi Qinghan's insincere congratulations, his face turned ashen. He clenched his fists and finally endured it. This was not the time for him to continue behaving atrociously. Humph. Xia Jiulong snorted coldly and turned his head to sit down. Yi Qinghan wiped the dust off his face. Although his handsome face was in a sorry state, he was still extremely handsome. Crown Prince, I wonder if our bet still counts. Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. Xia Jiulong said coldly, this emperor's words carry enormous weight. In front of all the saints, I will never lie to a junior like you. Yi Qinghan grinned and looked at all the saints. He said with a smile, Eternal Saints, it's not that I don't trust the Crown Prince's character, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Since the Crown Prince has agreed to let me enter the sealed heavens prison, and all the saints have supported the bet, then can the saints ensure my safety and let me enter the sealed heavens prison alive and walk out alive. All the saints had smiles on their faces. Only the 9-mansion lords of the Holy Empire had solemn expressions. They emitted a faint eternal pressure that made people not dare to blaspheme. I, the Crown Prince of the Holy Empire, represent the Holy Empire. How could I do such a despicable thing? Go ahead and enter the sealed heavens prison. As long as you don't do anything rash, this saint guarantees that no one will hurt you, the Yunlong Mansion Lord said coldly. That's true, but if I were to die for no reason, wouldn't it affect the reputation of the Holy Empire and the Crown Prince? Yi Qinghan said with a bow. The chess saint thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, since little Yi is so worried, for the sake of the Holy Empire's reputation, when the ceremony ends, this old man will personally accompany you to the sealed heavens prison and send you back. That should be fine, right? Yi Qinghan was immediately overjoyed and said with a smile, I've troubled you, chess saint. This junior is afraid. Looking at Yi Qinghan's expression, there was no fear at all. All the saints were a little uncomfortable with his courage. Which junior would be so sloppy when meeting a saint? However, it was already certain that Yi Qinghan had a great sage behind him, so no one reprimanded him. Yi Qinghan wanted to say a few more words but was stopped by Revered Lord Sword. Revered Lord Sword's face was solemn as he hurriedly waved his hand and said, Sect Head Yi, hurry and sit down. We're going to hold a ceremony to worship the heavens. Everyone will celebrate together and bathe in holy light. Don't disturb the auspicious hour. The sun shone brightly as the sun and moon rose at the same time. It was noon, and there was still an incense stick of time before noon. Noon was the most suitable time for the heaven worship ceremony. At that time, the heavenly Tao would rumble, bathing thousands of miles in holy light and blessing the world. Anyone who was involved in the audience would be able to obtain benefits. Yi Qinghan did not dare to disturb the saint's auspicious time. He hurriedly retreated to Emperor Ye's side and reached out to comfort Emperor Yi. The heaven-worshipping ceremony has officially begun. 1,000 heroes greet the saint. Lord Sword Lord channeled his divine power, and his voice was as loud as a bell, reverberating 10,000 miles away. Greetings, chess saint. Greetings, saints. Congratulations, chess saint, for stepping into the eternal seat and becoming eternal. Thousands of spirits cheered. Their voices were not in unison, but there were many of them. Their voices were loud and clear, soaring to the 9 heavens and shaking the earth. Those who were not eternal knelt and prayed devoutly. This involved the boundless grace of the heavens. Even Xia Jiulong did not dare to be careless. He knelt respectfully on the ground and kowtowed 3 times to the chess saint. Yi Qinghan was no exception. He prostrated himself with both hands and was extremely respectful. After all, the chess saint had treated him well. Even if it was out of respect for an elder, these 3 kowtows should be kowtowed. The chess saint was full of smiles as red light radiated from his face. He instantly became 10,000 years younger. The chess saint, who no one paid attention to in the past, had now ascended to the eternal seat and was worshipped by everyone. Who in the world would not revere him? Greetings, junior brother chess saint. Congratulations on ascending to the eternal seat and becoming eternal. The Sword Dao Grand Eternal Saint stood up and cupped his fists. Congratulations to the chess saint for ascending to the eternal seat. We are very gratified. The macro world will be glorious forever. The King of Hell and the Blessed Buddha Sacred Master stood up and bowed, giving the chess saint enough face. The chess venerable hurriedly stood up to return the greeting and sent the sages back to their seats. Then, he turned to look at the crowd of overlords and countless experts who had volunteered to meet him. He waved his hand and lifted everyone up. Everyone felt a gentle breeze on their arms as they stood up involuntarily. Everyone, please rise. Let's start the heaven-worshipping ceremony together. Let's welcome the grace of the heavens and bathe in the holy light. The chess saint said in a low voice. Half an hour passed in a flash. The scorching noon sun appeared in the south. Whoosh! The chess saint mobilized the might of a saint. All beings bowed to the emperor. Strange phenomena appeared in the sky and dragons flew and phoenixes danced. I, the chess saint, have cultivated the chess Tao all my life. Now that I have peeked into the great Tao of heaven and earth and gained the recognition of the heavenly Tao, I am grateful and have specially organized the heaven-worshipping ceremony. Today, I make a great wish. I wish for peace and for the order of the great Tao of heaven to be more stable. I wish for longevity and immortality. The chess saint's voice was loud and deafening, resounding through the clouds. Whoosh! The heavenly Tao of the great Tao had not sent down any immortal miracle for countless years. Now that it had appeared again, the holy light shrouded everything within 100,000 miles. When the holy light shone on one's body, it was like a divine elixir. One's Tao heart was empty. Those with weaker cultivation, who were stuck at the bottleneck, instantly stepped into the next realm. Roar! After a dragon roar, a 10-clawed holy dragon appeared in the blue sky. It was completely different from the dragon creatures that they had seen before. This dragon had an unparalleled aura that seemed to be even stronger than that of the eternal saints. All living beings in the world, please follow me and raise a toast to the heavens. May the heavens bless us and cleanse the world. Whoosh! The chess saint waved his hand and hundreds of millions of cups appeared out of thin air. These were the items that they had prepared to worship the heavens. They appeared in front of everyone in an instant and were within reach. Countless experts reached out to take the wine cups and raised them above their heads. They were extremely respectful. A toast to the heavens. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The overlords and the eternal saints raised their wine cups and poured it into the sky. At this moment, the heavenly Tao roared. The sound of nature reverberated from the end of the wilderness, causing one's blood to boil. Flying dragons swam and stirred up the galaxy. There were only patches of white clouds in the blue sky. It was beautiful. The white clouds gradually transformed into various auspicious signs that overlooked all living beings. Everyone's wine cups were filled to the brim. A toast to the earth. A toast to all living beings. Then, the cups in everyone's hands disintegrated and disappeared. Boom! 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 The earth rumbled non-stop. Beasts roared and birds prostrated themselves. Immortal light shone from the top of the sky, enveloping the world and blessing the world. At this moment, everyone had a different realization. It differed from person to person. Countless people were enjoying the blessings from the heavens. Yi Qinghan's entire body was enveloped in holy light. His physical body, which was already a paragon saint, was actually still being refined, changing the order and becoming even more powerful. Spiritual light flashed in his sea of consciousness, and a message appeared. The path of immortality is pursued by thousands of saints. What can be done? Immortal spells appear. Those who are fated to obtain them will be cherished. Chapter 2019. Yi Qinghan was stunned for a moment. This was his first time meeting a saint and worshipping the heavenly Tao of this world. He thought that it was a blessing from the saint, but he didn't expect it to be a blessing from the heavens. The path of immortality, pursued by 10,000 saints, what can be done? Immortal arts, those who are fated to obtain it, cherish it, cherish it. These words circled around Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. Following that, his soul became clear and blended with the heavens, almost becoming one. In a split second, a Taoist scripture filled with immortal light appeared in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. There were 4 golden words on it that captured one's soul. Prison Sage Tao Scripture. This was a peerless Taoist scripture. Since it was called an immortal art, it must be extraordinary and hard to find in this world. At a certain moment, Yi Qinghan suddenly felt the identity of a dark walker. It was as the Chess Supreme said, he was a heaven walker, enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. However, he couldn't kill the innocent. Otherwise, the power of the blade of judgment would be greatly reduced and it would be taken back by the heavens. The Dark Walker's lineage was passed down through generations. The blade of judgment had followed the Dark Walkers for generations. It had never disappeared or changed hands. Saints didn't dare to fight for it, and mortals couldn't. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He wanted to flip through the Prison Sage Tao scripture, but even after exhausting his soul, he couldn't open a single page. Can't open it? What's the use of giving it to me? Yi Qinghan frowned and was a little anxious. This was an immortal art. He couldn't use the Green Lotus Sword Song. This was the difference between him and Xia Jiulong. Xia Jiulong's secret art was 1,000 times better than his. If he wanted to kill him, it would be very easy. Maybe your soul isn't strong enough. Don't be anxious. Since it's a gift from the heavens, it can definitely be opened. The divine bird was very excited. Its soul turned into a void and entered Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. It wanted to touch the prison emperor's Tao scripture, but it only dared to look from afar and didn't dare to touch it. Yi Qinghan nodded to himself as his soul returned to its original position. He could feel that the strength of his physical body had increased by several times. His divine power had recovered to its peak state and was slightly more refined than before. His battle prowess had also increased by several times. If he were to fight Xia Jiulong again, he might not be in such a sorry state. Yi Qinghan raised his head and looked around. He discovered that everyone's faces were filled with ecstasy. It seemed that the heavens had not mistreated anyone. All opportunities depended on one's own luck and ability. The experts who were close to the chess saint were all top-notch existences. They had received the greatest favor, especially the chess saint himself. He had officially been recognized by the heavenly axiom and became a saint. The word saint appeared on his forehead and finally returned to his body. His essence had undergone earth-shattering changes. His temperament was otherworldly, like an immortal or a saint. Now, the pressure he exuded was much stronger than many eternal saints of the older generation. The experts on the periphery were all young people with great perseverance. They all wanted to use this heaven worship ceremony to soar into the sky. At this moment, they were kneeling on the ground devoutly, revering the eternal saints, revering the heavens, and receiving the favor of the heavens. In the valley where Yi Qinghan had set up camp, the brother and sister were bathed in the holy light. The light on their bodies was obviously more intense than that on others. It seemed that their opportunities were not small. The favor they received was far more than others. Xia Jiulong's eyes were tightly shut. His aura was like a rainbow. Although he was not a saint, he had the might of a saint. His dragon robe was cold and the emperor's aura was vast and mighty. His whole body was surging with holy light and his blood and qi roared. Compared to his previous aura, he was even more powerful. Emperor Yi, Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, Yan Ao, Fan Yin, each of them had received the favor. It was just that they did not say so, so no one knew. Most of the benefits came from the change in their talents. Their souls became purer and their perception was better than before. This was the immortal's miracle. Who could change a person's talent normally? There were also some old people who were tired. Their old bodies and souls seemed to have been refreshed. They were full of vigor, blooming a second spring and living a second life. This was the big world, and there were very few people who could live a second life. Yi Qinghan suddenly regretted. He should have brought the Guangzong. Even if they could not enter the inner field, they should have stood outside and prayed for blessings. Especially Lord Fazhen. If he could live a second life, he might be able to achieve the eternal rank. However, there was no medicine for regret. Now, he could only hope that the Guangzong could also produce a powerful eternal saint to bring blessings to the world and benefit the rest of the Guangzong. Time passed little by little. Yi Qinghan saw that everyone was still comprehending the favor bestowed by the heavens. He also calmed down and looked at the 4 words of the prisoner sage Tao scripture. The words were like an immortal, moving slowly and containing a different order. Why is it called the prisoner sage Tao scripture? Yi Qinghan was very surprised. The eternal ones were also called eternal saints. They had proven the eternal great Tao and were recognized by the heavens. Could this immortal technique be specially used to restrain saints? If he could not open the prisoner sage Tao scripture, everything would be in vain. Yi Qinghan's soul caressed the prisoner sage Tao scripture. The immortal light on the scripture could nourish his soul, allowing it to be bathed in the most nutritious immortal medicine soup, slowly strengthening it. As expected of an immortal scripture. Awesome! I like it. Ha ha ha. Yi Qinghan grinned like a fool. Pa! Suddenly, Yi Qinghan felt someone hit his head. He quickly opened his eyes and found Fan Yin standing in front of him with a curious look. What favor did you get? Why are you laughing so lowly? Fan Yin asked crisply. Yi Qinghan was stunned for a moment, then said with dissatisfaction, the heavens gave me a fairy, but you ruined it before I could bring her back. Give me one back. Get lost. Fan Yin was flustered. What time was it now? Yi Qinghan was still so improper. But Yi Qinghan also had his own difficulties. If he revealed that he had obtained an immortal scripture, this group of eternal saints would probably dismember him. It's true, senior sister. That fairy was as beautiful as you. What a pity. I still wanted to bring her back. Yi Qinghan grinned lowly. Sooner or later, you'll die on top of a woman. You're always talking about fairies. I've seen 2 saints before. Why haven't I seen fairies bestowed by the heavens? Most of them obtained some cultivation technique or insight that changed their physique, talent, and vitality. Tell me, what did you get? Fan Yin asked snappily. Yi Qinghan was helpless. He could only whisper in her ear, I got some insight by chance. I can't tell others. Our favor is too embarrassing. Fan Yin didn't believe it, but Yi Qinghan didn't want to say. Either he didn't want to say, or he really couldn't say, so she didn't ask anymore. At this moment, many people were shouting excitedly. There were also some people who had made a fortune in silence, unwilling to tell others about the favor they had received. Xia Jiulong glanced coldly at Yi Qinghan. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and a trace of disdain appeared in his eyes. It seemed that Yi Qinghan was no longer in his eyes. He couldn't even be considered an enemy. It seemed that what he had received was definitely not ordinary. Yi Qinghan was all smiles. He said, "Crown Prince, don't forget our bet. When the time comes, I hope you'll send me to the heaven sealing prison. I don't need your things. Don't worry." Xia Jiulong replied coldly. "That's good. That's good." Yi Qinghan nodded repeatedly. He wasn't angry, so Xia Jiulong couldn't vent his anger. She might be about to give birth. He prayed that she would be born today. Chapter 2020. After the heaven worship ceremony ended, all the heroes were excited as they felt the grace of meeting the saint. Indeed, it was better than 1,000 years of cultivation and was more beneficial for the future. The chess saint's temperament had undergone a drastic change. Previously, he looked like an ordinary old man. He was very gentle and kind. Now, he had a noble and dignified aura. It made people have the urge to kneel down and seek an audience with him. Yi Qinghan understood that some people might have received even greater grace, but they were all hiding it. No one was willing to expose it, such as himself. After the meeting ended, all the hegemons bowed and retreated. Some of the itinerant cultivators and young elites from small clans knelt outside the Sword Dao Sect's gate, looking forward to the sacred ground's grace and recruitment of new disciples. Sword Supremacy had specially arranged for the recruitment of new disciples to be tested by Sword 13. After the other hegemons of the powerful sects and clans bade farewell to the saint, they quickly left. Only the younger generation and some saints were left outside the city gate. The chess saint led the saints into the inner sect to chat about their insights. However, the younger generation was not qualified to enter. Even Xia Jiulong was waiting outside. The Nightwalker and 2 other plain-clothed youths left quietly without alerting anyone else. Yi Qinghan, Fan Yin, and Emperor Yi stood together and waited for the chess saint to appear. At this moment, they were facing each other outside the city gate. They looked at Xia Jiulong, and there was no need to hide the enmity in their eyes. Although the ceremony had ended, it was still solemn. The Sword Dao Holy City was peaceful, and Xia Jiulong did not want to ruin it. If he attacked Yi Qinghan again, he would have to find another opportunity. Xia Jiulong clenched his fists and said, "The mountains will not change, and the rivers will flow forever. I will wait for you outside the Sealing Sky Prison." With that, Xia Jiulong turned and left. Xian Xiu followed behind and sped through the air. Moments later, they disappeared from the holy city. 2 hours later, Xia Jiulong landed outside a city. His eyes were gloomy, and the corners of his mouth were raised. Inform the Sealing Sky Prison to dig 3 feet into the ground. We must find what Yi Qinghan wants. We must not let him take advantage of us, Xia Jiulong said angrily. The mystic bowed and replied. Then, he quickly entered the city and used the blood-robed guards to inform the Holy Empire's capital of the Heaven Sealing Prison. A day later, the Heaven Sealing Prison was completely bustling. Everyone was on the move, searching for treasures outside the Heaven Sealing Prison. However, they didn't know what to look for, so they could only search on the ground. They didn't even think about digging up the mountain. The ultimate divine metal was buried at the bottom of the mountain. If they wanted to find it, they wouldn't be able to dig 3 feet underground. Inside the Sword Dao sect, at the sacred chess peak, the chess saint and the other sages were discussing the Dao. Their words and actions followed, the great Dao rumbled, and profound laws were attached. Even Lord Sword could not listen to the Dao there. However, this kind of Dao discussion only lasted for a day and a night. By noon of the second day, the sages had already left. Yi Qinghan and the rest were waiting for Chess Venerate Saint at the training grounds. They were also watching Sword 13 take the assessment of the younger generation and discovered quite a number of geniuses. Even the pair of siblings from before were very talented. They were also gritting their teeth and taking the assessment. In a day's time, they had already rushed to the third stage. After passing 2 more stages, they would become disciples of the Holy Land and soar into the sky. The little girl had previously dissed Sword 13, but now, she stuck out her tongue when she saw him. She didn't dare look directly at Sword 13, afraid that he would take revenge on her and her brother. With Sword 13's temperament, how could he take revenge on a little girl who was still wet behind the ears? Instead, he took care of her like a child. Now, the youngest person to enter the third stage was this little girl. At this moment, Fan Yin was not interested in these young disciples. Instead, she was comprehending what she had obtained this time. This meeting with the saint had brought her considerable benefits. She had improved by at least 30% compared to before, and her combat strength had increased by more than several times. Perhaps she had a chance to tie with Xia Jiulong, but Xia Jiulong had also benefited. No one could be sure what his true combat strength was now. Emperor Ye's expression was still very excited. He wanted to say something a few times but hesitated. After holding it in for a day and a night, he finally couldn't hold it in any longer. He ran to Yi Qinghan and whispered, "Husband, I obtained a Saint Tao scripture." Yi Qinghan was startled. He didn't expect Emperor Ye's luck to be so great. He actually obtained a Saint Tao scripture. Outside the plaza, there were only Yi Qinghan and a few others. They were all on the same side, so they didn't hide anything. Yan Ao also whispered, "I obtained a Thought Eternity's true mental cultivation method, the True Eternity Technique." Jiang Jingtian and Gu Qingyu bitterly smiled and shook their heads. It seemed that the benefits they obtained were far less than Emperor Yi and Yan Ao. Yi Qinghan looked at Wu Sheng'er. She was the reincarnation of Baizhe, which represented fate. The benefits she obtained were probably not ordinary. Wu Sheng'er still hadn't recovered her memories. She maintained a certain distance from Yi Qinghan. She raised her head and said, I won't tell you what I obtained." Yi Qinghan smiled dotingly and didn't ask any more questions. Wu Sheng'er's memories would recover sooner or later. There was no need to rush. "Your luck is pretty good. The heavens blessed the world and didn't randomly give out blessings. It's not that there aren't any Saint Tao scriptures, but only 1 in a million. For a saint to attain the Tao, it's roughly estimated that 3 Saint Tao scriptures would be bestowed. You guys obtained 2 of them. It seems that the insane sect's luck is very strong. That's for sure." Yi Qinghan said confidently. Fan Yin smiled and shook her head, "Don't think of it so simply. The Saint Tao scriptures bestowed by the heavens aren't eternal. As long as one can't comprehend it to the great completion stage within 100,000 years, it means that that person has no fate with the Saint Tao scripture. The Saint Tao scripture will automatically disappear. The person who obtained the Saint Tao scripture will also never attain the Saint Tao scripture. It's not that no one has obtained a Saint Tao scripture before, but now, they've become dispirited people." Emperor Yi and the others widened their eyes and asked in disbelief, "It can't be. Their cultivation will actually drop. There are 2 sides to every coin. The Saint Tao scripture is a double-edged sword. To be honest, if Emperor Yi and Yan Ao had a 60% chance of becoming an eternal saint at the beginning, but once you obtain the Saint Tao scripture bestowed by the heavens, your chances of attaining the Tao scripture may drop by 30%. You'll only have a 30% chance of becoming an eternal saint. However, once you attain the Tao scripture, your cultivation will probably soar like the chess sage." Fan Yin explained in a low voice. Doesn't this mean that if I can't become a saint within 100,000 years, I'll never have the chance to attain the eternal Saint Tao scripture?" Emperor Yi asked in surprise. Fan Yin nodded and replied affirmatively, "Yes, this is what my old man told me. He told me that if the heavens bestowed a Saint Tao scripture, I must reject it." "Fuck!" Yi Qinghan blurted out. What he obtained was not a Saint Tao scripture, but the so-called immortal Tao scripture. The path of immortality, the pursuit of 10,000 saints, what can be done? When the immortal Tao scripture appears, those who are fated to obtain it will be cherished. If I only have 100,000 years, I'm afraid I can't even reach the saint realm. How can I comprehend the immortal Tao scripture and cultivate it to the great success realm? Yi Qinghan took a deep breath as cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Fan Yin looked at Yi Qinghan and noticed the cold sweat on his forehead. She frowned and asked, "You also obtained the Saint Tao scripture?" You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.